Yo, what's up? How are you doing, bro?
I'm doing good.
Doing good, living life. Anything much happening?
I think not. It will soon happen. I hope the ambient noise didn't disturb that. My life is going to be picking up steam in around 2 weeks. Hopefully, things work out in a positive direction. I hope yours
Yeah,
proceeds in a similar nature as well. Anyway, we recently watched a couple of trailers and a movie
wrapped up a couple
together.
of
Let's talk
shows.
about them. Yeah,
Yeah, but
at least, yeah.
before we get there, we've had a legendary
Uh-huh.
actor pass away recently. Someone
Yeah.
who was the headmaster of Hogwarts for 6 movies, I think it was, from Prisoner of Azkaban to Deathly Hallows. Micheal Gambon, Irish
Yeah.
actor, 83 years old, recently passed away.
Rest in peace. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace. I looked up into his thing. He's played roles in Layer Cake, and he apparently appeared in Kingsman 2, which I heard was not a great film, but it is a film that he appeared in.
Hmm.
And I also
Right.
know he appeared in King's Speech, which is, I think it won an Oscar. So
Yeah, there
I've
was
seen a
a
couple of
Robert
clips
Whittaker
on it.
movie.
Yeah. I've seen a couple of clips on it. It seems like an interesting movie, just never gotten around to watching it. Yeah.
Right.
I also learned recently, as a fan of the movie Fantastic Mr. Fox, he voice acts
Forgive me.
in
I
one
don't
of
think it
the.
was Robert Whittaker. I think it was Colin Firth. Yeah, Colin Firth movie at the King's Speech.
I see. Yeah, so rest in peace to him. He played really well
Mm.
in. You've watched all the Harry Potter movies, right?
Yep, I've watched all of them. I've read all the books.
Read all the books as well. How do you think his portrayal
Yeah.
of his version of Dumbledore was?
So, as a fan of the novels, the Harry Potter novels, I'd say he did an excellent job. We had two actors
Hmm.
portray Dumbledore in the movies, and he,
Yes. One of them,
I
which
think,
you
had
thought
the
was
longer.
Ian McKellen for some reason.
I mean,
Lord of the Rings, Ian McKellen playing Dumbledore.
that
Yes.
I've lived in this delusion that like Ian McKellen got to play like two of the best wizards that we've ever seen in this side of the year 2000 with Lord of the Rings and Dumbledore as well. So
Yeah, no.
if anything,
Anyways,
it's an accolade to Ian McKellen's star presence that anytime a wizard is played, we always go to him, and he's
true,
been the
true,
best of our time. Yeah.
true. Anyways, go
So
on, go on.
the two actors, I think, yeah, the two actors who played as
Richard Harris is the
Richardson.
first one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Richard Harris, and he was incredible. I've seen him in The Count of Monte Cristo as well. Like he plays an incredible role,
Yes.
and I feel the Michael Gambon portrayal will always be clouded by how the directors have chosen to interpret this series with, like there's that iconic meme. um, Dumbledore said calmly, and in the movie scene, he'd be shouting and running at you. So
Uh,
it's it's
uh,
always going to be clouded by that image, and I'd say even within then, if you're someone who's not been exposed to the books or any other portrayal or adaptation of Harry Potter, the story, he
right.
still played an incredible role of like a nurturing leader who's overseeing the development of the next generation of wizards. And I feel he perfectly embodied the character in the nature of Albus Dumbledore has to make tough decisions, but at the same time he's trying to preserve the kindness in the students and he's trying to uplift them out of all the situations that they're going through. And I'd say that's very accurate to how the books wrote the character as well. And thus I'm very,
Right.
very satisfied with the performance as a fan of the movies. So I wish a peaceful rest and a happy afterlife.
That makes sense. That makes sense. I've only ever
Yeah.
read the first Harry Potter book, and in that, at
Hmm.
least, of course, the first Harry Potter movie wasn't played by him, so I can't really judge him. But
Yeah.
everyone seemed pleased with him, and I think he played really well as well. I was at least
You know
engrossed in
what?
his action, so
I know that you're
yeah,
not a
I
fan
approved
of
it.
like reading the books, reading like book adaptations of mini film series. I've tried to get you to read manga and light novels, and you've not been that interested in stuff. But I'd say
Manga
the
I can
Harry
do.
Potter
Light novels
series.
I'm a bit more hesitant on.
But I'd say the Harry Potter series has a lot more details than in the books rather than the movies. And I think that is my primary example of books always having a lot more details that are, complicated enough to not be adapted into films. And it feels that the
Unnecessary
world
detail.
in a book
Mm.
is a much more richer as compared to this. So to
Right,
put it into
right.
perspective, my first Harry Potter book was the third one, Prisoner of Azkaban.
Ah,
And
yeah.
I've read that book probably around 14 times when I was a child. And it's
Right,
only
right.
after that that I got to read the other books from beginning. And I
Yeah.
felt that that one book, when compared to its movie, the movie barely has like 30% of the world or the
Really.
characters and stuff, whereas the book is way more richer with the emotions and the world.
Damn. Fair enough, fair enough. I
Right.
like the Harry Potter
Yeah.
films, and I will say though I haven't read any of the other books in their entirety, I have read parts of some of the other books just to
Mm-hmm.
see. I remember at times people would talk about, oh, it was done better in the books and blah blah. So I did at times read parts of it to compare and stuff. But yeah, I can understand that sense of like the book was given like room to breathe a lot more
Yeah.
compared to the movie,
I'd
which had
say,
to be
yeah, the,
concise
the
and
reason
budgeted.
why it
But
works so well is the reason why we recently praised the One Piece and live action adaptation as well, is because it actually captures the spirit of the original really well.
right,
And that's
right.
why it works. If
Yeah,
you
you
look
can
in at
forgive
in
it for the
some
bigger
way that
stuff.
captures almost all of what the book encompassed, I'd say the Half-Blood Prince movie really captured the
Uh,
like the tense vibe of the
right,
series.
right. Well, Half-Blood Prince is one of my favorite films out of that series, so I guess that makes sense
Hmm.
now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Anyways,
that it's in the cusp of, we know that we are in the cusp of the end game, and we don't know how that twist is gonna come up, and that is why
right,
that
right,
one specific movie has that kind of potential with it.
right. Fair, fair. That makes sense. That makes sense. Hope rest in peace for him. Hopefully
Yeah,
his family and everyone around him is doing well. But,
right.
well, he's passed away. There's been a marriage on the other side of the world. Can you guess who?
uh, it's the 1, 2, 3. He's gonna cut down your Christmas tree.
Vic Star 1, 2, 3. He apparently,
You know,
according to you, married a Tinder girl, isn't
I still think uh,
it?
I think you've gone out of your way to try and prove me wrong, but I still think it's the
It's
one
not
person
about
assigned to
prove you
Tinder.
wrong. It's not her. What do you mean?
On a side note, I actually wanted to start with this. It's that, you know, the one best aspect of our friendship is that you actually introduced me to the Sidemen, and I've always been hesitant to like enter into like influencer territory or something. But I
Right,
feel that the
right.
Sidemen are a very wholesome bunch, and thank you for making me a fan
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah, I
So
think the Sidemen
on
have the
that,
advantage of like they're just a bunch of friends just having fun.
yeah,
And so a lot of
yeah,
times like the actual content of the video doesn't like matter as much because you're there just to
yeah,
see them mess around, which is I think
right,
something that a lot of people like, especially me as well. I would love to have that in the future going forward as well, you know. No matter
right,
how old I
yeah,
get, I
like
can
what,
just be with my friends and just do whatever, mess
yeah.
around.
I mean,
Yeah.
I think if you very distill it down, like when you're a child, your parents often tell you that your friendships don't last after you go out of high school, and that's true. You go to
Right.
college, and that's also true. So my friendships are very much dwindled down, and so it's sort of like that romanticized idea of, okay, these are the friendships that have lasted and that's still ongoing. And
Right,
I
right.
think that's why we all love the cycle very much. I don't think, even if they never did any of the like the big budget travel productions or like the the road trip videos or anything, I'd say that genuine friendship is attractive enough for us to be engaged with them, and that's what
Yeah.
matters in the long run.
Yep, I agree. I agree. Yeah. Well, congrats to Vix. Vix, congrats
Yeah.
to Vic for getting
Wix.
married.
I guess some
Hopefully
of
they'll
your
live good
deep
life.
inner thoughts came out right there.
Did you see any of their photos of their like wedding stuff?
I did not, and the only information that I've seen is by YouTube thumbnails with I think Randolph uploaded one and then Toby uploaded another. And
Uh,
that's all I know that he's gotten married. I think Vic's done a good job of keeping his private life private, and that's
yeah,
fine
yeah,
with me as a fan. So
yeah. I think it's probably better for him as well, so that he has a separation between like what is ultimately his work and his like
yeah,
personal time. So
yeah,
yeah,
colleagues in
yeah.
it.
Just colleagues, just a bunch of colleagues in it.
Yeah,
Yeah, and another one of Vic's friend also has an event coming up. You know who?
yep.
Yeah,
The is it next week, right? It's on the 14th.
yeah. Two
It
weeks
should
time. 2 weeks
be
time. Yeah.
right. So 14 days from now, KSI will be fighting his mortal enemy
Well,
in
I would
deadly
say his
combat.
mortal enemy is probably Jake Paul, and unfortunately, he's not fighting Jake Paul yet. And
I feel Jake
uh,
Paul has done a good enough job in dodging the situation.
true, true. But this is kind of like one of my reasons for like I slightly want to see him lose this just so I can see him beat up Jake Paul, against Tommy
Hmm.
Fury. Like I wouldn't mind if he lost
Yeah,
just so that we can get it, because I think he's gone on record and said that if he wins this, he's not gonna fight Jake because Jake lost to Tommy, so it's like he's won against Jake essentially, which I can
I mean,
understand.
I can see Jake dodging this if he beats Tommy because Jake will know that he will probably never have any way of beating KSI after this. Because KSI
True,
is good enough
true.
to beat Tommy right now. I mean, let's look at this from Tommy's perspective, right? Tommy's beaten Jake, I think by decision, right?
Right, right. Yep.
And now he's gonna face KSI, and everyone's expecting KSI to beat him for the KSI and Jake Paul storyline that's going on in the background.
Right.
And he's literally the other half of this fight, and he's sort of being treated as an afterthought. And I think
True.
he's gonna come in 100% like a freight train to try and upset this one. So KSI is also gonna need to take this seriously. They've got
Yeah.
both of them has got a great deal to lose. If Tommy Fury loses to I don't think his victory over Jake Paul will matter much anymore. It's just gonna be a footnote in like KSI trying to get to Jake Paul in
Yeah.
the end.
Yeah, because Tommy Fury also has the expectation of his last name, right? This is the Fury family.
Yeah,
They're a fighting family. Have been champions
yeah,
for decades. This is like for him, it should be a win. This is like just like a big paycheck for him, really. But it's his
yeah.
reputation that's on the line. Like I think honestly, if he loses to what a lot of people still consider a YouTube boxer, it could put a big
Mm-hmm.
dent on like the people even willing to fight him later on. It could be like bad for
Yeah.
his career later on. So there is that aspect of it at the same time.
I mean,
So
compared to how I think JJ is also gonna come in with a good deal of pressure because he's coming off of the legendary immortal elbow with Fournier.
true,
And
true.
so
Still
he
undefeated.
needs to show that he needs to show that he
He
can
can
do
fight.
this with his pure skills alone.
Yeah.
So
Or maybe he just
if
throws
he
another
beats
elbow
Tommy
and says he
Fury
won't
now,
fight again.
yeah,
Maybe
if
that's
he
his
beats
solution.
Tommy Fury now, he's gonna get that distinction of YouTuber and boxer instead of a YouTuber boxer.
Yeah,
I think
people will
he'll prove
actually
his
like
skills
respect him
enough.
for it.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I think everyone
and
still slugs on on Jake Paul for that, right? Everyone is like fight a
mhm,
real athlete, so then he fought like a basketball player, and he's like it's not a fighter. And then he fought like he fought um the MMA guy.
yeah,
He slept him, and it just kept going higher and higher. And I don't think he's actually fought a boxer until Tommy, and he finally lost. And everyone
yeah,
dogpiled him, being like, we told you if you fought a boxer, you wouldn't win." So it'll
right,
be interesting to see if JJ can get out of that same shadow now.
yeah. On the other side of the
Yeah.
card, we have his brother Logan Paul versus Dylan
A
Danis,
fight I'm actually more
and
excited to see.
It's so weird seeing the Paul brothers' journey in this stage
A
because
true
as
anime
a wrestling
story.
fan, I've seen what he's done in WWE, and he's an excellent athlete and who's picked up
Right.
like the pro wrestling craft. And now he's
Right.
being forced to return to the boxing. So
Boxing.
we
Yeah.
don't know exactly what's gonna go down. This one is something that's very much in the classical vein of thought. People who just want to see it happen rather than see where the result goes. To get to see them
Yeah.
in the ring is much more important than to see what happens even after that.
Yeah, true, true. And I think the thing with the Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis fight is Dylan
Uh-huh.
Dennis just knows how to market the fight. The amount of shit talking he's done online, the amount they've riled up each other, it almost feels
Right,
like that's the personal fight. Whereas KSI and Tommy
right.
Fury is the business fight, you know? Logan Paul and Dylan Dennis feels like, okay, whoever gets knocked out here, their livelihood is done because the other person is gonna make sure they're 6 feet under. You know?
I mean, in my eyes, I perceive both the fights in the same way, although I can see exactly how you would say that. It's all a bit of marketability because they
Of
really
course, of
haven't touched on
course.
that way enough. KSI trying to tell Tommy Fury that you're just a footnote in my way to get to Jake Paul or something. So we've never
No, he's
seen
not.
that
He's not.
aspect of this fight being explored. We all know it deep inside our subconscious, but if they obviously state it, it's gonna add another layer, and we might probably get it to a personal level to Tommy Fury. Never know.
Yeah,
I
but I
mean,
think
if
again,
we
JJ
if we
said
look
on
at it
record
purely
that he
from a
wouldn't
pundit's
fight Jake if
perspective,
he's beat Tommy. So I don't think it'll matter if
yeah.
he wins against Tommy. Right.
If you
So
look at it
yeah.
purely from a pundit's perspective, it's like this is just a walking payday for Tommy Fury. He just needs to show up and be
Oh
the
yeah.
YouTube boxer.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So
Same with Dylan. Same with Dylan.
I feel Tommy Fury actually really believes that this is just a YouTube boxer and I don't need to do anything special to take care of this guy.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why he hasn't gone all out in promoting this.
Right,
And
right.
I don't think it, specifically with how things have gone down until this point, I don't think he needs to work for it anymore because the Dylan Dennis versus Logan Paul fight will get the eyes anyway. And he just needs to work off of
Oh
that.
yeah, for sure, for sure. I mean, he was a big enough pull anyways because of his fight with Jake Paul. People became
Jake.
more hyped. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's that's a pretty gonna be a pretty stacked card regardless. The other fights on that
Hmm.
card, I don't know if you know any of these guys, but Salt Pappy, Slim, Albar. I think Slim is undefeated. Salt recently lost his fight, but it was
Yeah,
a
in the previous card
decision.
I heard.
Yeah, it was a decision. It wasn't like he lost essentially in a slugfest and just couldn't get
Hmm.
enough punches in. This fight,
Hmm.
like I like on a face value, I would say Salt Poppy wins this. But the amount of stuff Slim has pulled off out of nowhere is insane. Like he had a fight with FaZe Temper, and he for
Hmm.
that fight he was called in 2 weeks from the event because the guy that Temper was meant to fight was he pulled out. He got called in 2 weeks before the event, knocked him out second round and just
Mm.
walked away. So Slim has some very tricky tricks where if he's going in with 2 weeks worth of training and able to pull off that versus someone that's been training for a couple of months, if he's been properly
Hmm.
training, it might be a very interesting fight.
Right, right.
The other fights, King Kenny versus Anthony Taylor. I hope Kenny wins because Beta Squad in it. I don't care
Hmm.
about Dean the Great and Waleed. I don't care about Astrid or Alexios or Swarms or any of the others. The other somewhat interesting fight is SX versus DGT, just because SX is like he is a music guy that did stuff with JJ before in the past. It'll be
Uh-huh.
interesting to see how he's going. And then
Right.
their tag team fight. Nitch Lamau and
Hmm.
Alex Wasabi. Alex Wasabi's finally back after his injury, quote unquote, versus
Hmm.
Pineda and B Dave. That one I just hope Pineda and B Dave win because I want to see this like fantasy legend of them building up for some reason, especially
Hmm.
Pineda. So I guess we'll see how that goes. Any thoughts?
Uh, Nothing much apart from the two main events. I'm not really exposed to many of the other people on the card. Maybe King Kenny from the beta squad, thanks to you a little bit, but even then, it's
Right,
in a very minimal level. So I'm not really looking forward to most of the undercard.
right. Well, I mean, let's switch from boxing fights to virtual online fights between animators and fans of anime. Specifically, I guess, in this case, JJK.
I mean, this
Tell
isn't
me.
much of a fight with the fans as much as it's with the actual production company itself.
Right. Go
So
ahead.
the
Sorry,
JJK
continue.
animation situation, specifically, I mean, the latest detail that we got is that the episode 9 that recently released, it was rendered just like 2 days before the broadcast. So that's
Right.
how tight the schedule's been getting for them. And
Scheduling it.
I probably guess they're gonna soon be behind schedule. And they just returned with
Possibly.
the season two, part two of season two, and thus it's gonna be interesting to see what happens to this anime. We look at Zom
Mm-hmm.
100, and which we'll talk later on about. Uh, in Zom 100, we recently saw how the schedule got screwed, and I think they lost TV slots for the rest of the episodes, and I think they're gonna have to catch up in the future season, which has happened previously to other animes as well. And this has been
Right,
a
right.
problem with Japanese animation. Uh, so many of the animators are getting underpaid
Yeah,
and
it's a
overworked,
cultural
and
problem with the industry almost.
as much as I don't want to disparage Japan, I think it's a very corporate problem that's
Yeah,
very prevalent in all of
unfortunately.
Japan, and unless it's like a big societal upheaval, I don't know where this is gonna end up being. I mean, there are other studios like Kyoto Animation who provide like excellent deals with their animators, and
Yeah,
I
for
think
their
people are much
animators.
more happier to work with them.
I
So
think
I hope
Ufotable is
something like
also
that,
like well known for that, right? Or somewhat known for that.
yeah,
Of course,
somewhat known, I
Ufotable's
think.
problem is tax evasion, but that's probably how they're paying their animators. So, what's better? I don't know.
Yeah, I hope there's like like maybe an overseeing governmental authority or something to make sure that employees' basic rights
Change
gets
it.
respected in this case. Yeah. I mean, this
Yeah,
is a
I
meme,
hope.
right? You remember the RTC World meme of animators being held in the studios at gunpoint, not allowed to
Yeah,
go home.
having
It
to
very
finish
much
it
feels
until
like
they
that
finish it.
situation is real now, and
Yeah, it
it's sad
does.
to see that on the other side of the screen, we fans are enjoying maybe some of the greatest work that Mappa's been putting out since they clinched Attack on Titan season 4. I mean,
Yeah,
since then, they've been on fire. Everything that they've produced has been worked out well. Either nothing's been horrible, everything's been average and above average. I think the only thing
right,
that
right.
didn't pay off as much might have just been, Chainsaw Man or something like that. But
Chainsaw
otherwise,
Man, like,
they've
it
been on
paid
fire.
off mostly. It's just that their Blu-ray sales were underwhelming for them. And I think I read into the situation a bit, and the main reason for that is that the Japanese people apparently don't like the director for the anime. They really dislike him. So they
Oh,
went out of their way not to buy it, to not support it in that sense.
I see. That's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, Fujimoto's been on a wild run with whatever he's been creating, and I'm
Yeah. I
I'm
think the
looking
manga
forward to
sales have
seeing
been up,
Goodbye Eric get
so
adapted. So
yeah.
fingers crossed on that. And I
Yeah.
hope the situation improves with the JJK animators. Overall, the industry in total, Mappa situation as well. It's been
Yeah.
rumored for a while. We've gotten glimpses, and then we've gotten like counter contracts and stuff with them saying that we provide this. But I don't think
Yeah.
it's gonna change for a while. I hope it gets changed. If
Right,
there
right.
was any actual change that could happen, I hope that the fans and uh, everyone who's been supporting this series could showcase their wills as well to try and get this changed.
Yeah.
We never know
Yeah.
where it's gonna end up. Hopefully, it goes into something positive.
It's also kind of ironic that we're talking about this from Mappa of all people who were like initially a studio that branched off of Madhouse's like same problems they had, overworking people to the bone with low pay and everything. They branched off from that. They did, I think, God of High School with Attack on Titan being their main title. They did God of High School for
Right.
the animation style, showing off what they can do as an animation studio. Then they went Attack on Titan for like to actually show, oh, we can actually also adapt stories well and whatnot. And at that point, I think I remember all of us being like, "Oh, this is like, even though this is not the same thing as the Wit Studio stuff, this is still really amazing, really well done." And slowly, as
I remember
things
the
were
trailer
kept
being the
coming
one that
out,
reassured people because we were all skeptical until the trailer came out. And once the trailer came out, and then eventually we saw episode one, we were all happy with
yeah,
what
we're
was
okay
going on.
with it. I mean, people still complained about the CGI stuff here and there, but I think becomes unnecessary because in the modern day, CGI is bound to be
And
used in
that's just
everywhere.
blind CGI
So
hatred. That's just blind CGI hatred at that point. Because I remember
yeah,
that episode one airing, people just hating the CGI for no reason, and they were doing
yeah.
like a great job with it. It was just
Yeah.
blind hatred at that point.
Yeah, and after Attack on Titan season 1 ended, I think they announced 2 or 3 other animes, and I think it was a rolling ball of like slowly it felt like there was the meme of like every anime ever Mappa is taking on. And people were starting to be concerned, was like, is this gonna become another Madhouse situation because of how much anime they're taking on? And it feels like we've gotten to
Let's
that stage where we're seeing the cracks of that possibly showing up.
yeah. I mean, let's take a look at all the series that they've sent since Attack on Titan season 4, right? So I remember they got all three of the Dark Trio,
Yes, they did Jujutsu Kaisen, they did Chainsaw Man, they did Hell's
Hell's
Paradise.
Paradise. Yeah. And Hell's
They
Paradise season 2 is
had
also being worked on. They're gonna be
yes.
making the Lazarus anime with Shinichiro Watanabe. I'm looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
So hopefully that's actually being co-produced with Solar Entertainment. Let's see where that goes. So
right.
Remain, they did Tact as well. Tact.
No,
Oh,
they
I'm
didn't do Tact.
surprised that
Oh no, they did do
they
Tact. Oh
co-produced
yeah.
Tact with Madhouse. They did
Yeah,
Tact with
that's right, that's
Madhouse.
right. They
So
also
Vinland
did
Saga,
Vinland Saga. Yeah, that's what I was gonna
Vinland.
point out. Vinland
Yeah, yeah.
Saga's seasons have been doing that.
I mean, as a fan, they've been nailing everything that they've been working on, and it's working out just fine for them as well. But I can
Yeah.
imagine on the production side that it's been
It's
a
just
nightmare.
too much. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hopefully they get their shit together because it feels like they started off with good intentions and hopefully they stick to it by the end of it. Fingers crossed it's a bump in the
yeah,
road and not a collapse like Madhouse did. Anyways, let's move on to talk about the trailers. We had 2 trailers this week, I think,
right.
right? Introduce them to us.
Yes, two that we watched. All right. So since I've been pre-exposed to the series, I've read most of the books. No, I've read the original series. I've read the sequel series as well. I've not read the third series fully. Let's talk about the
Fake
Percy
fan,
Jackson trailer.
wow,
Percy Jackson,
SMA.
the series is gonna be airing on Disney Plus in the future. It's
Yeah.
gonna be hopefully a significantly different adaptation as compared to the movies that aired almost a
Yeah, I've
decade
watched
ago.
all 3 movies. Have you watched all 3 movies?
All two movies.
Oh, all
There's
2
never been
movies,
three.
whatever. All 2
I
movies. But I guess that's just a testament to how long they put in
I
it. Yeah,
yeah,
go
yeah.
on.
The first one, right? I saw the first movie before I actually read the first book. And I felt the first movie was all right, it was fun, but I was a fucking kid at that point as well. The second
Right,
movie,
right.
by the time I read the second movie, I read all of the series and caught up to it. And I knew exactly how much of a train wreck it is. So
Uh,
uh,
fair.
at least as far as I've seen in the trailers, they're gonna do justice to the material as much as I can see. They've actually aged the characters perfectly according to the novel version, so that hopefully we can see Percy and his friends grow up as the story progresses. So
Is it meant to be
I'm fingers
something like a
crossed.
Harry Potter type of evolution of like as you go through the movies they age up and whatnot?
Yes, yes. As you go through the series, they age up, and it's
Their
um
relationship develops and
it's
whatnot.
a yeah, it's not very much like an episodic. Harry Potter's aging up is very much like implied with its school year system, right? The seven school
Right,
years
right.
that you're supposed to go through in Hogwarts. But here it's 7 years, sure, but it's not specifically linked to school. Although
Right.
every 7 years, it's like a gigantic conflict of some kind of nature is going on,
Uh,
and that's very much
uh
associated with like the
so it's the build up
young
to this
teen
massive
storylines.
conflict.
Yeah, it's slowly getting built
Right,
up.
right. That
And
makes
there's
sense.
minor conflicts going on in each as well. I mean,
In
the
between,
series
yeah,
as a
as
whole
they
is one of the best children's series that's been written ever. It's one of the best-selling ones, and I'd say it captured a good deal of like how the Greek or Roman mythologies work, and the cross
Right.
adaptation into Rick Riordan really adapted it well so that a modern audience can get a bit more interested in that stuff. So
Right, right.
I'm looking forward to this. I'm happy to see
As am I.
Edge cast as Ares. This is a character that was completely ignored in the first movie, and
Uh-huh.
this I feel the fact that this character is there in this movie makes me really happy. I'm looking forward to seeing where this goes. Also,
Right, right.
they've race switched some characters, and as you've pointed out when we watched the trailer, it's not much big of a deal, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed and not completely as a thumbs up person because of that. I don't know where they're gonna go with that. Hopefully, it's in a positive
Yeah,
direction, and also Lance, despite how they
Lance
switched
Reddick
the race, or something, I'm happy to see Lance Reddick play one more
as
character
Zeus.
in the beloved series of mine. Yeah,
Yeah.
so
And I
at
wonder
least
how
for season
they'll
one,
handle
anyway,
that
we
in the
don't know.
future. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't know how they're gonna
Like
do it.
we checked,
Hopefully,
and a lot
let's
of
see
these
where it
gods
goes.
can kind of just change their shape and how they look and whatnot. So I guess they could ultimately just use the excuse of that, right? Athena can do the same thing. She can appear as whatever she wants. So they can ultimately just be like, oh yeah,
Yeah,
Zeus just decided to take a different body because of XYZ, and they cast a new actor for it.
yeah.
Hopefully, one that plays justice
I
to what
mean,
Lance Reddick's
it's a
destiny was.
historical implication, right? Because Greek gods have always been
Of course,
perceived to be,
Greek,
you know, with the white
phenotypically
skin, the
Greek.
blonde
Yeah,
hair, and all that stuff. So it's that departure from this, which is what's clouding my mind. I mean, when
right,
I read the series, I didn't even picture the movies actors in those roles as well. So what image you see in your mind's eye is very different from what's being adapted into the
of
screen.
course.
But at the same time, some of these changes I'm very much on board with. For example, like seeing Grover, which is a
Uh
very
huh.
much as a side character. We're getting some possibly an Indian representation of this character. You never know.
Right.
And so there are such characters that uh, it's in a level of this could get a bit preachy with the color of the skin and all that stuff if they try to go that aspect, or at the same
Right.
time if they completely ignore it and stick to the original series
Storyline.
spirit and its content, this could work out excellently well for them.
Right.
I mean,
Well, I
ultimately
think
that's it. I hope they keep the spirit of the original material, and that's been the problem with the Percy Jackson movie adaptation. If they kept it
no spirit.
exactly the way it was, it probably would have worked out just fine.
They're also kind of
Hopefully,
boring,
they do it this time.
which hopefully this
Yeah,
won't be.
yeah.
Yeah, I think we were talking about this. Firstly, it has a very like Stranger Things vibe, which I can understand in the
Mm-hmm.
new age. Netflix biggest, arguably one of the biggest like shows in the new age, Stranger Things, and they're
Yeah,
going with that with like a music choice, and even some of the like shot like choices and how they look and stuff is very much like that.
right.
And the other thing you pointed out as well to me, which was that the author is working with the series guys that are making
Yes,
this show.
yes, the production committee. Yeah,
Yeah. So hopefully whatever changes happen are like justified on his end, because I remember when Neil Gaiman's Sandman came out, people
Mm-hmm.
were complaining about things like um you made Lucifer a girl and she was meant to be like David Bowie or something and whatnot. And he would
Yeah.
like willingly go out of his way to defend every change that was made there. That was either gender wise or
Mm-hmm.
race wise. So I hope
Yeah.
it's like that sort of situation happens in this as well, if there is anything like that.
Yeah.
If anything like that comes up, yeah. By the way, was the main characters who's the actor for that? For Percy Jackson? Is he well known for anything else? Or is this like a new role
The
for him?
child actor.
Yeah, yeah. Is this
I
like
think
someone
I've
they've checked
seen him.
potential for,
I think
or
I've seen him for
uh-huh.
a very specific movie, which I have not watched yet. Hold on.
Go ahead, go ahead. Yeah, because the casting choices at least
Uh,
seemed pretty decent from the outset, from like face value. So I hope
I
it'll
mean,
work well.
when I saw him, I was quite okay with it. The actor for Percy Jackson is also being credited for the Adam Project with Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, is he the same kid in the Adam Project? Is he the main character, the kid character
Yes,
in the Adam Project?
yes, yes,
Ah, I
yes,
see, I see.
yes.
Okay, I know that, I know that. I watched the Adam Project. It was an alright movie. It was fun in its own sense. I can understand it now. Okay.
Right. He's
Ryan Reynolds
also
and a
been
random
cast
kid.
in Secret Headquarters,
No idea.
also a 2022 movie.
Okay. Anything notable?
Right, right. No, nothing else notable outside of this. And since I've not seen the Adam Project, I've not seen any of his previous acting
Fair.
experiences. I mean, from what I saw in the trailer, this feels like a very perfect adaptation of Percy as a character. I could very much feel that this is a Percy Jackson as a character, So I'm
Right,
happy with
right.
what I'm seeing.
What about the directors or whatever that are behind it? Are they looking
Hold
like
on a
reliable
second.
people?
So,
People that we should trust with a series beloved? Because a lot of the times, directors, especially with the movie that we're gonna talk about for this week, can make a lot of difference.
yeah,
They can make a lot of difference. uh, Sometimes
yeah.
way too much.
So, in terms of feature films, the director James Obin, I don't know exactly how to pronounce that. I'm gonna say it's Bobin.
Bobian. Bobin?
Bobin.
Bobin.
I'm gonna
Bobbin?
try and say the way Robin Atkinson says Bob. Bob. So
Bobbin?
he's directed the Muppets, Muppets Most Wanted, Alice Through the Looking Glass, Dora and the Lost City of Gold, and also he's done some comedy stuff. And he's been
Uh-huh.
nominated for BAFTA and Writers Guild awards as well. So
Okay.
I think his wheelhouse is in comedy, but
Yeah,
the
those are all
big thing that
tonally
stands out to
different
me,
shows than this. So
the
it'll be
big thing that
interesting to
stands out to
see.
me right now is that, as it reads in his wiki, in February 2016, it was announced that he would
Uh-huh.
direct a Jump Street Men in Black crossover film.
Oh,
So
I heard about
he
this.
was the he was the director that they had in mind for something like this,
I
and
see, I
that puts
see.
me, if they were planning to do something that big with him, and I can sort of have a peace of mind when we're going through this. I mean, there are comedic elements to the Percy Jackson movies, and hopefully we'll be seeing them perfectly adapted with him as well.
Right, right. Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough.
Hmm.
All right. And the other trailer you brought up was
Argyle. So
Argyle.
Argyle is now slated for a Feb 2024 release, and the reason that it
Uh-huh.
caught my eye, starring Henry Cavill, also featuring John Cena and Samuel L. Jackson. So three actors
Big
that I
names, big
really
names.
have an eye out for. Yeah, real big names, and it's all star power in it as
Superman,
well. It's a good deal of star power in this
Peacekeeper.
movie.
Yeah, we literally have Superman, Peacekeeper. We have
Nick Fury,
Nick Fury. Who else is there? Oh, we have Dua Lipa is there. This is her first
Bryce
big
Dallas
acting
Howard.
thing, I think. Yes, he's in there as well. A lot of big names for what
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a quite interesting like film. It seems like it's based around this concept of like a writer doing a fantasy spy thriller which turns out to be somewhat real in a sense,
Mm-hmm.
or there's
Yeah.
some truth to what she's writing and she gets pulled
Yeah.
into that world because of
I mean,
unknown reasons.
it's an idea that maybe people might have toyed around with their heads. I write about something and that's already been true or something like that.
Yeah, and
And
just no
it
one's
feels that
known
this
it.
is the execution of that idea finally.
Right,
I
right.
mean, the trailer looked really promising, although it still has some elements I've seen in like big blockbuster films where they feel that they've thrown together enough big names and they will automatically be a hit. So fingers crossed
True,
for this
true.
moment. But I don't see Henry Cavill jumping into a project unless he's 100% on board with its vision and stuff, since how he
Yeah.
left The Witcher behind.
I
So
mean,
I'm much more on the positive outlook of seeing this on the big screen, hopefully.
yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, he did Superman because he liked Superman. He did Witcher because he loved those games. Like he's gone on
Hmm.
record and said that if anyone ever made like a live action Warhammer 40K, that would be all
Yeah.
him. He would love to be part of it. So he's like I think this movie is very much in line with something like Bullet Train. This will be a fun movie with like things intertwined in between it, and it'll be fun to like watch. It won't necessarily be like a majorly deep thing or a political commentary, or this is not going to be a film buff film. This will be a get around with your family and just have some fun type film by the looks of it.
Hmm. Right.
So it should be good on that basis. Hopefully, hopefully. Yeah. Anything else you wanted to mention on that?
I mean, I'm excited for this, and this is the first time that I'm seeing the main character in this movie, not Bryce Dallas Howard. I mean, the other main character, the spy, who's we only know him as the Hammer guy from Iron Man 2, Justin Hammer, and this
Yeah,
is the first time I'm seeing him in an action role.
Dustin
So
Hammer. Yep, he's
he's been
gone
placed
from
in
tech
a
to spies.
yeah, he's been played in a much more important role in a movie that comprises of all these big names. So I'm looking forward to
Right,
seeing how he
right.
can pull something like this off. I mean, he's probably always
Yeah,
had this, and this is the finally the time where he's been given his chance, and studios are seeing him in a light where they could capitalize on it. Hopefully,
yeah,
let's see
yeah.
where this goes.
I mean,
I have
fingers crossed.
my fingers crossed, but I'm very positive on this being a good, successful movie for all the participants involved.
Yeah. Do we know this is a direct to Netflix movie, right?
No,
Or
it
is this
should
slated for box office
possibly
release?
release into theaters. It is gonna be released by Universal Pictures theatrically, and then
Okay,
later
okay.
on to Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV. That's what it was. Apple TV. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Apple
mean,
TV has been
Apple
making a lot of
TV
good stuff.
generally hasn't let down people. They've made good shows,
Yeah, they
and
usually get big
the
names for
comedy
everything
stuff
as
that
well.
they've worked on has worked out just fine. I mean, look at Ted Lasso. I
Yeah,
love Ted Lasso.
yeah,
You've
exactly,
still not caught
exactly.
up to it yet. We need to catch
Not
up
yet,
to it,
not yet.
but
But I'll slowly
hopefully,
get
yeah.
through it. Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're also doing the new Godzilla TV show, which I'm excited for. So we'll see and see how
Hmm.
this will be. I think they'll be good regardless, though. I think they'll be good.
Right.
If Apple knows how to do anything, it's quality. They might not
Hmm.
be the first to anything, but they'll have the quality of it. So fingers
Indeed,
crossed.
indeed.
All right, let's switch gears from live action to the animated world now. And
Yeah.
let's talk about an anime which is facing similar overworking problems and has is about a guy that's overworking himself to death in an animation studio at the same time.
This
Zom100.
is, I think, I mentioned it to our friend Nathan, I think today, that compared to Mappa, this is the on the nose situation where something like this is an issue where the anime literally is about a dude overworked to death and him finding a zombie apocalypse as the happiest event of his life where he can make an escape and redefine his future. And the anime itself, due to overwork, has been delayed and lost its series time slot. Zom 100. I am so sad to see such a promising series being, maligned,
Delayed.
rightfully maligned. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks to the situation. Oh
Yeah.
God.
So I looked into a bit of the problems that were surrounding it. And
All
firstly,
right.
the first
What
thing
you
I
find?
found out, first thing I found
Mm-hmm.
out, which I had no idea, was apparently on August the 3rd of this year, Netflix released a live action version of this anime. Which I had no idea they did. Worldwide release, live action version of this. So that was interesting.
This
But
is probably the most atrocious marketing for anything ever because I'm an anime fan. Somehow or some way, I would have found out about this. And this showcases how little Netflix care. Oh, uh, on a side note, maybe it got really overshadowed by One Piece's adaptation.
true, the news about the One Piece adaptation probably did overtake it. But it
Yeah, yeah.
feels
So,
very much like I watched the trailer for it. It feels very much like they did Train to Busan. They did a bunch of like Korean horror films, which did really well for them. And this turned out to
uh-huh.
be a zombie film, which they kind of were like, okay, we'll chuck our attempt at it because zombie films tend to do good on our platform. So it felt like
Right.
that. Yeah. But anyways,
Uh,
on the production side, right? So the production house behind this is Bugs Film, which is an independent
mm-hmm,
studio. They've done work with OLM, which is their main studio they worked with together. They did work on a bunch of minor stuff before, but this is their first solo independent thing that they did. And Bugs Film apparently split off from OLM because of
mm-hmm.
um them being overworked and stuff. And the main guy that's heading this is a guy named Hiroaki Kojima. And they split off in
Oh,
September 2021. And just for reference, all of them are the guys that do most of the Pokemon stuff. They did Comic Con
mm-hmm.
Communicate, they did Odd Taxi, they did Summertime
Oh,
Rendering,
wow.
which is something we
Oh,
have to
wow.
watch. Yeah, we haven't
Yeah.
gotten around to that yet. And I looked a bit into it, and there was a blog that came up, and it said this, which I found very interesting. And I'll quote
Mm-hmm.
this. If there's one thing that Kojima's team has gained notoriety for among the people who followed the industry closely, it's their deeply unbalanced productions, especially under
Mm-hmm.
Kawagao's lead, who's apparently one of their other head guys that split off to make the studio.
Right.
They put
Right.
together tremendously ambitious starts that they have no way to follow through on, be it as part of the overworked OLM or now independent Bugs film that technically only has a couple of dozen employees of their own. They simply have no means to maintain this level at a pace that Kojima intends to put out titles.
Uh, this
So it
feels very much
seems
like an
like,
exam situation with the studio. Actually, people working on it actually know what they're doing, but they're still rushing through something.
yeah, it seems like this is not just a OLM overworking problem, but even the guy that's heading the studio is being overly
Right.
ambitious for what he's trying to achieve problem, which makes
Right.
it doubly worse for them because we only got news for the one delay, and now they've been indefinite hiatus because of full TV slots, and there are likely production issues on the back end as well, which we
Mm-hmm.
recently saw with things like Misfit of the Demon King, Uncle from Another World had it, even Bleach, the Thousand Year Blood War, which is like a massive production that Toei is putting tons of money into, had to skip a
Yeah.
week because of production problems. So it seems like just like how we were talking about with JJK, these problems are only gaining more and more in their issues rather than having a slowing down effect or anything by the looks of it.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate. But let's put that to aside for now and actually talk about the anime. How did you like
Yeah,
Someone Ordered?
I very much liked it. Uh, I've heard complaints about this anime that the cognitive dissonance of, it's a zombie world, but these characters are going around in a comedic or a
I
happy-go-lucky
think that's the
manner.
fun of it, though.
Doesn't read. Yeah, that's the point of it.
Yeah,
And I've heard people who don't like it, and look, it's a valid thought if you don't like something, that cognitive dissonance. But for me, in my taste aligned with it, and I feel that this was done very,
yeah,
very well. It's a welcome twist on the zombie genre where character really looks forward to something like this. It's like
yeah.
Zombieland the movie if it was very much happy instead of being that
Happy go
depressing.
lucky. Yeah, yeah. And it
I
feels
mean the
like
main
very
crew,
refreshing, in its
yeah,
like
yeah,
how it portrays its main character, especially because he feels
yeah,
more relatable. He's got these like sometimes arbitrary dreams, like becoming a hero, and somehow he's able to achieve them just because it is a zombie world, and he doesn't really care about dying so much so at the moment, because as far as he's concerned, once he's done all of these dreams that he's achieved, he's going to become a zombie anyways. He doesn't see an
yeah,
end where people are going to be saved from this situation.
yeah.
So he's just having as much fun as possible.
Hmm. The main crew as well, Akira Tendo, Shizuka, Mikazuki, Kenichiro Yuzaki, and Beatrix, the recent character who joined as well. I'm really liking this crew. Like the balance is also well
Yeah,
maintained, and it's the romantic idea is sort of implied, but they still maintain like the platonic nature of this crew, and I'm all
yeah,
for it. And the delays have really been hurting this anime. I wish it was like airing with like the regular schedule instead of being hurt by now.
yeah,
It would have ended by now otherwise. It's still got like 4 episodes to go and they've run out of TV slots. So I
yeah.
want to see where it goes, but at the same time,
It might be,
I don't know when I'll be seeing where it goes.
yeah, it might be time to switch over to the manga for it, which is unfortunate because the animation for this was really incredible. The fight they had with the
Oh,
shark,
yeah, yeah.
the fight that they had during the mall scene where they met the flight attendants, had the stuff with it, and then they turned zombies. That like runaway scene was like
It's
incredible.
it's so hard to convince someone who's been put up by episode one, right? Like that this thing gets really good. I mean, the flight
Yeah,
attendant scene was genuinely heartbreaking because,
yeah,
her character and her characterization, I really felt sad because it's
yeah,
very much a plight that most flight attendants deal with, with passengers and stuff. And it was their dream to work hard and become a flight attendant or a air hostess. So,
yeah. But then people shot at
that
them.
was,
Mm.
yeah, it was so, the character was so perfectly embodied. I actually felt like it was a real character and to see where it went in the end, right? So,
Right, right. Yeah,
ah, I
such a
can't
good show. Such a
explain
good
that
show.
without going into spoilers for anyone who's not seen the series so far. And
I
to
think it's fine if
anyone
we go into
listening
spoilers.
who's been looking to seeing a series that's, what, you just wanna have a fun time with your friends and maybe it's gonna be maybe in a serious world, but it's a character who's just having fun. And if you enjoyed movies like Zombieland or Bucket List or elements of this that cross over to those movies, you're gonna have a fun time watching this anime. And
Yeah,
I hope
yeah.
you have a fun time when you eventually decide to check this out as well.
It's a very character revolved anime, and if you can love the characters, then it doesn't really matter the events they're doing because they'll all work.
Yeah,
You're there for the characters. They're having a good time.
yeah.
They're messing around, doing what they can. So yeah, it's good to see. And recently, in the latest episode before it stopped, episode 9, we did see a character that appeared to be the foil of the main character, which will be
Oh
interesting to
yeah,
see
yeah.
going forward.
That's what it's ended right now. Where most other animes have ended their summer run as well, and
Yeah.
we've just stumbled onto the big twist or like the big conflict that's gonna come up.
Yeah, well, it
So
looks like to be the big conflict at least. So
Yeah.
yeah,
And
might
also, I
have to
wanted to
switch over to
point
the
out
manga
that
for that.
the idea that they promote in the end of the series, anyways, that the main character goes for like material pleasures as well. He wants beer, he wants to have an LCD TV, he wants to do
Yeah,
like go
yeah,
on to those places and stuff. But at the same time, I think the biggest thing that they promoted is the idea of friendships and the relationships that he's built and he's hoping to maintain. And
yeah,
that I think is the best aspect that we can take away from the series. That in the end of the day,
yeah.
people really, in their final moments at least, they always want to be happy and see everyone that they love be happy.
Of course, of course. And I think it also handles all the different types of relationships like really well. Like
Hmm.
and not just like romantic relationships. Even the best friend relationship is really nice to see. Even the
Yeah,
whole thing of like the other side of a one-sided romantic relationship where the girl is has got her own past and she's having her own troubles and that's why she's not willing to commit to such a
yeah,
relationship even at the end of the world when there might be no one else or nowhere else to go, right? Which feels like
yeah.
in a lot of other things like Terminator or so, it's like, oh, this is the end of the world. And they'll end up going for whoever just for the sake of like preservation of the future of humanity, right? And
Hmm.
it shows like a different light to that as well. So it's like
Right.
it's nice to see. Yeah.
So I just checked something and I found out the uh, the s- the writer for the anime, at least the screenwriter, who's
Right.
is Hiroshi Seko, and he is known for being in charge of all the writing for Seraph of the End, and also done screenwriting for many
Oh.
other series, notable ones
Uh-huh.
including Attack on Titan,
Nice.
Mob Psycho 100,
Nice.
and Summertime Rendering, Jujutsu Kaisen,
Nice.
and
Uh-huh.
Dorohedoro, which explains the tone of this
Ah.
series.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
another thing I forgot to point out. I love like the artistic style this is chosen to take with the blood being a
yeah,
bunch of different colors and how the characters are portrayed in their own artistic ways. And it feels really like poppy, which is very
mm-hmm,
odd for when you see zombie movies or zombie animes. It's always dark and gloomy, and this is like very poppy in your face, and even the blood is like very
mm-hmm,
poppy. So it feels like really weird, but like really like almost puts you in a happy mood while you're watching it.
right. So I'm looking at other
Yeah,
series that he's worked on. Terran Resurrence, Ajin, Inuyashiki,
Argylle.
Vinland Saga. He's
Ah,
the current ongoing screenwriter since the series began.
right.
Idaten Deities, Summertime Rendering,
Yeah.
Chainsaw Man. So he's worked
Ah,
on some significant series as well. No
I'm
wonder
assuming
that
he's. I'm assuming he
the
does like
tonal
episode writing,
consistencies,
right?
yeah, episode writing as well. And
Right,
I know
right.
he's the overall screenwriter for
Oh,
some series as
overall.
well. But
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
for I think for Vinland and JJK as well, he's the overall screenwriter.
Overall, right,
And
that's pretty
so
good.
the tonal consistency, I think that's the thing. The tonal consistency is a cognitive dissonance, and that's what people have been having a problem. But I'm good with that,
Yes.
and I'm happy with the
Uh,
anime, what I've seen so far.
yeah,
I'm
people just
sad
need to
that
lighten up,
the
man.
production team
Just have
has
some
been
fun.
going through their own issues. Hopefully, it
Yeah,
works out in the end.
fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Misfits of the Demon King
Uh,
took like two seasons to release. Uncle from Another World it took like a year to release. I'm sure it'll release eventually. And
yeah.
hopefully Kojima, whoever this guy is at the head, gets his act together and realize maybe he shouldn't be so ambitious that he can't complete projects in one
Yeah.
playthrough.
Yeah.
Even though
On
I
a side
love
note,
what he's doing, I don't want him to
anime
like
fans
overwork
from
stuff.
Asia who are listening to this can watch the series now on Muse Asia as a YouTube channel. Muse Communication is the official distributor for Asia. So you can freely watch this in YouTube. The series is
Right,
available on
right.
YouTube.
Shifting from that, let's go
Yeah.
to a remake. A remake of a
Uh,
series we both like the original version. We haven't read the manga, but
I mean, I've read some chapters of the manga, but it's way later to where the anime was originally adapted. So
okay, okay.
I
But
was
it
very
is
much
another
enamored with
series
one
which is
character when I
marred
was
with
in the series.
controversy, unfortunately, but for a
Yeah.
different reason.
And Yeah, this one not specifically on due fault of any of the production team or the release schedule or the quality of the anime. In fact, it's an issue with the author. And folks, if you
Yeah.
haven't figured it out, you're talking about Ruraoni Kenshin's 2023 anime remake. Uh,
Yep.
Personally, it's been working out just fine, and I love
I
everything that's been
agree.
happening. There are some elements of this anime where I wish I could have like the older anime's aspects of it being utilized. There's a good friend
Yeah.
of ours by the name of Tatakai. Uh, I'll keep his real name hidden for now. He's a massive fan of the series, and I think he also voices agreement with me that we wish the original soundtrack from the 90s anime was adapted back into this because it was
Yep.
so close, so enamored, or so linked with perfection that I don't think the new anime needs it that much. I mean, it does a good job, but
Yeah,
there are
the
some
new
minor
anime's
elements
music is
like
all
that.
right, but it's just not.
Yeah,
It doesn't hit the same. It doesn't hit the same.
it
Like
doesn't
at least
doesn't it say
Bleach's remake reuses some of the old songs, but I'm pretty sure
remixes.
Kenshin doesn't do any of that, which is unfortunate. I would have liked to see at least some callback to the original.
Yeah,
Yeah. But as far
in
as
terms of
remakes go,
characterization, yeah,
yeah.
in terms
Before
of
we go to
characterization,
characterization, before we go to
they've
that,
done
I
that
just wanted
with
to talk
justice.
about um art style. How do you think the art style compares to the new one? Sorry, to the old one.
um, I've voiced this to you before, and this might be repeating or nailing hammering the nail over and over again for you, but I think the audience doesn't know it. I'm really in love with the 90s and the 2000s anime skies, the darkness of the skies and all that stuff. And I hate like the
Right,
modern
right.
anime skies, which is like fucking moonlight 24/7, and it's just as bright as sunlight almost now. So I hate that kind of thing. So that is one of the things that I hate. Apart from that,
Right.
I feel the animation style and the decisions that they've made for the anime so far, I'm really on board with it. I like everything that they've done with the animation choices so far. I mean, there have been occasional moments where I feel the 90s anime did something better, but those are
As
like very far
moments.
and few in between. Yeah,
Yeah,
those are very
yeah.
far and few in between.
I mean,
What do you
there
think?
it's just a different generation of animation as well. We have to remember that in the 90s when they
Yeah.
would have made it, this was like cell shading, they were hand drawing, they were selective on everything, but there was also not as much like mass competition. They weren't fighting to get out as much in as little time as possible, whereas now that they are. I will say I do prefer the older art style, especially for characters, a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that the newer art style is apparently more in line with the manga, but I don't know, it doesn't feel the same to me. It almost certain things of it almost creep into like as if I'm watching a generic like isekai or generic
I
anime
mean,
type thing, where it just feels like
let's
I can't
remember
tell.
in the beginning episodes we noted that the first initial boss character of the series was
The
like
spot the
portrayed as a
stand
fucking literal
user.
giant. Yeah, he was gigantic,
Yeah, hard to
gigantic
miss
dude.
him.
And recently, when Aoshi Shinomori was also like, it stood out very much from the crowd, and it was obvious that
Yeah,
this is one of the significant character coming into the series. So
yeah,
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I like the animation choices and the character design choices, and
yeah. Animation wise, it's
keeping in
fine. I
line with
think.
yeah, keeping in line with what you said about like the evolution of uh, animators and animes changing over time. I feel this is something that's in line, or I'd say on track with what's been like recently going on with anime, and I feel this is like a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
balance of very modern style of sometimes very abstract drawings and sometimes rooted
yeah.
drawings as
It
well.
still keeps the charm of what the
It's
show's
still
art style is
yeah,
meant to
the
be. So I
original
think that's
spirit
fine.
is maintained as well as the crisper style is also being showcased as well. I mean, there are some
Yeah,
moments that I've mentioned where it could either be the original manga being different from the 98 anime, or
right.
it could be the new anime doing something else. But I felt like the original anime made some choices, some story choices which would have, built up to some stuff that happens later on much better. But
Yeah, I think you're
I
more
think,
vocal on this. You've got a harder stance on this. For me, there's like some stuff of it which I don't mind. I think
Mhm.
most of the stuff I don't mind as much as changes. I think there are some genuinely better choices of like how they're rearranging the order of certain things and how they're introducing, or at least to us, it feels like introductions. I know
yeah.
it's probably most likely just, oh, this is already in the original manga. It's just the original show didn't follow it. So, yeah, but
Hmm.
it does. There are things that feel in line. I think the one thing we pointed
Hmm.
out, which was a little
Hmm.
bit odd on your end, especially you said was a lot odd. I think for me it was okay until some of the later episodes in like episode 6, 7, where it got a little like pushy was the romance aspect of it, which they introduced a lot
Yeah.
earlier.
I
Yeah.
mean, I'm just selectively ignoring it for now because in the original anime, it's the Kyoto moment, the departure moment, when that
Right,
iconic
right,
OST was used, which was where, like, the romance really came to fruition. Or
right.
it was even before, right before then, when a certain someone, an ex-Shinsengumi member, returns to meet Kenshin for combat. That was when the romance
Yep,
really came into play. But until
yep.
then, it was just implied and not so overtly shown as in with the new anime. So
Yeah.
maybe it could work out much better. In my eyes, I feel the original anime did it better. But yeah, fingers crossed. Let's hope
Right.
it goes in the
I
good
think
direction.
I think this was like this will at least avoid the problem of like in the original it felt very sudden, almost like unexpected. So in my eyes at
Hmm.
least, it feels like okay, the setup will at least lead to a better payoff. But there are times where it feels like they're pushing it a bit where it doesn't need to be there. So there are like
Yeah,
aspects of both end unfortunately. But I think it's just the nature of shows anyways.
yeah. I mean, my
Yeah.
counter argument to that was that in the original, we all subconsciously know it is going to happen, and then it suddenly happens
Yeah.
instead of being a bit built up. But I still feel it was like very perfectly done in the original. Let's just agree to disagree. That's it.
Yeah, yeah,
Can't
of
do
course.
very much.
For
That's
me,
what
it
about.
was like in the original one, it felt like, oh, after the entire show is gonna finish, oh, the epilogue will
Hmm.
see them together, rather than it's gonna become a thing that's actually in the show and hinges
Yeah,
on some part of it. So there was
yeah,
that part of it, but yeah, at the end of the day, I guess it doesn't really matter yet for us. We'll see how the main moment hits when we watch it.
yeah,
We'll judge it then,
yeah.
really. Yeah. As
Overall,
of
I have. I'm positive about the series. I've seen
yeah,
very many anime channels skip over the series because of the stuff that's associated with the the
author.
creator of the series, and I can't fault them for anything that they've
Yeah.
chosen to do as such. It's
Yeah.
not really up to me to tell people to do what they want to do. And personally, for me, I fell in love with and found out the series much before I even found out exactly what happened, what
Same
the
here.
author did. Yeah, so I can, in my mind, dissociate the artist from the art itself. I mean, I don't think that's a good justification or that is even a valid justification to many other people, but
Yeah.
that's how I feel, and uh,
I think it's
it's just
lucky that we can
unfortunate that
do it for this series. It's lucky that we
yeah,
can
yeah,
do it for this series, but at the same time, it's not like if anyone is put off by what the author has done, that's totally justified, I think.
I mean,
There's no need to watch it.
I want to point out that it's not as just on the nose as possession of some material that's very unsavory in nature, but it goes into a much more deeper and darker crime as compared to that,
Rabbit hole.
which maybe
Yeah.
we can talk on after the recording ends. But this, it's just unfortunate that this stuff happens, and you could cloud your eyes on the series. And
Yeah,
if
yeah.
anyone tells, if I talk about Kenshin to anyone and they say to me that they can never watch the series because of what the author did, it's perfectly understandable and it's perfectly fine by me, and I'm not gonna fault it.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. Um from there, I think you wanted to oh, oh yes. Also, since we are now in the what season is this for the anime? Is
This is the
this
summer season of
the
anime.
summer
The
season?
summer season just ended. Yeah,
That doesn't feel right.
we're
Oh
heading into
no, we're
fall.
going into the autumn. No, we're going into the
Yeah,
autumn
we're going to
season.
fall.
Yeah, yeah,
Fall. Yeah, the fall
fall
season.
season. Yeah. So first show of the fall season that we both have been watching is Frieren. First four
Yeah, so
episodes
saying
came
of
out.
yes, and
Incredible,
they've
I think.
done an excellent job. I've
Yeah.
to come clean to the audience. Both of us have not been exposed to the manga. I
Nope.
think. Have you?
Nope.
All right, so we're both going in
Only a
completely
bit
blind.
from what they've been talking about. A couple of our other friends
Yeah,
have been talking about here and there.
yeah.
Yeah, but not
So we've
directly.
been going in completely blind, and
Yeah.
I'd say this is an incredible anime. Anyone who wants to watch a good wholesome show this season, I'd recommend this one for you. I mean, there are other great shows coming out as well, but this one's, I think, very high on our list. We're gonna continue
Yeah.
following this.
It has emotional
The idea
moments
of
in it as well.
yeah,
So don't think of it as like a slice of life. There
yeah,
are certain ideological aspects that it explores. And I think a
it,
lot of it is relevant to today as well, in the
yeah,
sense that the main character in this is an elf, and she faces a problem of her age. Her like aging is like she lives for thousands of years. Time doesn't mean
mm-hmm,
anything, and I think a lot of people in today's day and age treat time the same way. They don't consider it
mm-hmm,
as a part of their integral reality that they have to go through, and
mm-hmm,
they just do whatever they want. So I think there is like a deeper component to it, which a lot of people can either relate to or know people that do things like or have a sense of to some extent.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, I'd say both of us will highly recommend the series to anyone who's been looking forward to the
Yeah.
next good new anime.
Also,
It's a
just to
bit
note,
slow paced, so don't go into it expecting action. It's very much character driven, and
yeah.
I'd say it's one of the best shows that I think will come out in the summer season when it's all said and done with.
Yeah, I think it'll end up being. Do we know how many episodes this is marked for? Can you search that up real quick?
I can hold on. So
Just to
I
note,
think
this is made
it.
by Studio Madhouse, who have
Oh,
also come out of the controversy of overworking people. So let's hope that
yeah,
they've learned their lesson. And I think you can
yeah.
see it in the animation style and the backgrounds and stuff. It's very like artistically driven. So I hope this is Studio Madhouse turning a new leaf and hopefully recovering for the future as well. Let's see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How many episodes are we saying?
So the wiki does not tell you how many episodes that they're going for.
Ah,
Um,
okay. No announcement.
so okay, I found out that it will run for two consecutive courses. Okay, so 24 episodes in total. I
Ah,
see, I
okay,
see.
okay.
So
Makes
24
sense.
episodes. It's gonna go through fall and winter.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Is it going to be
Yeah.
consecutive cores or is there going to be a break in the middle? Do we know? No idea.
It's two consecutive courses as of now.
Okay, okay. Easy, easy.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been updated on
I
the 27th of September. So yeah, that's the most
yeah.
recent update. Two consecutive courses.
Yeah.
Crunchyroll has licensed the series outside of Asia, and Muse Communication in Southeast Asia. So hold on, I could look it up in a quick moment. Find out if Muse Asia is doing it.
Easy, easy. I have to say the main character in this is a little jarring at times because there is a level of like there are human characters as well, and
Yeah.
emotionally you'll connect to them more, and it'll be jarring almost how the main character comes off to them, and
Uh,
there will be that aspect of it to be aware of. But I think she's done really well, and she gains an assistant a couple of episodes in, which is almost our POV of the situation for it. So you
right.
get that aspect of looking through human lenses of how she goes about things, and it's what almost that side character that she gains seems like the one that pushes her to change and stuff. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the setting of this is also very interesting in that it's a post Demon King era where they've
Yeah,
defeated the Demon King and it's now
yeah.
into the new
Also,
world of peace.
massive Studio Ghibli vibes. As a fan of Castle in the Sky, I very much felt like we were back in a world similar to that, with the peaceful villages and the music. Oh,
Right,
and
right.
also
Yeah.
the music is heavenly. The music in
Yes,
this series
incredible.
is incredible to listen to.
Incredible, incredible.
It's very emotionally capturing, majestic in its conveyance of
Yeah.
stories.
It's
So
very much made for the show as well. So it'll be
yeah,
like when you watch the moment, the music will fit amazingly to that moment as well. So it'll
yes,
be
yes,
marked with its own special like moments as well. So yeah, there's that
yeah.
aspect of it. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so
Okay,
son of
you wanted to
Frieren,
talk about
anyone's been looking forward to that? Go at it. It's gonna be fun for you.
yes, for sure, for sure.
And talking about series that ended, which I personally am a huge fan of, Mushoku Tensei just ended its season two's first score. We've had a very people are complaining it's a very slow season. So, as a web novel reader who's read the entire story, I've not read the light novel, so there's been changes according to the light novels that have been made in the anime, and I'm really liking those changes as well. This, I'd say, was a very good adaptation. They've had to leave out some characters and some character POVs in favor of what the anime did, but overall, I'm satisfied. And yeah, it still continues to be one of the best isekai animes that have come out ever and deserves its props. So, anyone want to look into something of that nature, which is very slow in character building, and step up the controversy, try and take more stuff that people have been telling you about it. It's very slow, and it's gonna have a really good run, and you don't want to miss it as it's going on.
As a not web novel reader and a reader of
Uh-huh.
some of the manga, which I've heard is a terrible adaptation of the
Oh yeah, the
show.
manga is terrible. Skip it, skip it. The manga is I don't want to talk about.
Yeah, the manga I've seen the first two
Let's put it
episodes of
this way:
Mushoku
the
Tensei. I
manga
haven't seen
adapts
anything
the
else.
original series in a similar nature to the movie that we very recently watched, which adapts the original material.
Yeah.
That should
I've
explain this very much.
I've seen the first two episodes of the anime and I can tell you that they like at least feel more intense and closer than what the manga does. So I would definitely say
Yeah,
skip the manga. But like controversy wise, I've not heard much about this season, luckily. Yeah, for this season's controversies, luckily, considering the first season was marred with controversy over and over again. It felt almost like every 3 episodes something
I
new would
mean,
come up that people would complain about.
by now,
Which some of them I can
by this season,
understand
it's
as
had its
being like,
controversial moments. It's had
yeah,
its controversial moments, but by now, those people who've just been coming into the series for the controversy have been weeded out. So, I mean, there's been controversy as far
yeah,
as like episode 10 or 9 and stuff. So, that's been sort of done and taken care of. It's the all's well if it has a good ending, right? All's well if it ends well. So it's sort of this score has really ended well, and that's why people have been very positive about what's been going on. So
right,
one of the
right.
controversial things that happened about this score was that the the animation felt a bit more downplayed or not as good as season one's first two cores. So
Ah,
in response to that, as what's gonna come up, I'm saying
uh-huh.
that they've saved their budget for the end of the core two of season two, which is gonna be coming out in the April of next year.
I
That's
see, I
gonna be
see.
a bit intense to animate, and that's really gonna need a good deal of their budget, and also a good deal of the
Right.
production members who worked on the first season have been engaged with other projects as well. So they've been a bit understaffed as compared to people they had for the first season. But
Right.
I'd say it's done an excellent job. It's done an excellent job. There are some moments where you can point out, okay, this is not as good as what they could have done. But keep in mind, folks, that this is a studio that's been created just to make this anime. And
Yep.
thus, you can calmly rest your minds and enjoy this series for what it is.
Was there anything else you
All
wanted to
right.
talk
I
about?
think
Anything else you've been reading, watching, anything like that?
I think we could go talk about them at a later time, but let's get right down to it. The movie that we both watched together.
Movie of this week. So in
Yes.
anticipation of Apple TV's release of Monarch, which is
Mm-hmm.
which is coming up, I think, in 2 months' time, something like that. We've decided to
Yeah.
go back and watch the entire Godzilla movies up till now. Godzilla Kong Monsterverse movies. That's what it's called, the Monsterverse. And well, the first one we had to watch was Godzilla 98, which is an amazing film, right?
Yeah.
Your favorite film, I've heard,
Amazing.
actually.
It's amazing in such a way that the song in the credits, I've still been listening to it. It's a remix of a Led Zeppelin song, and I think that is the most positive thing that I can take away from this movie. That song is real hype, and many sports teams have since used that as their entrance music or their goal music.
Right. Well, I
Uh,
think I think that's the one positive
Folks,
that might
let's
have
put it
come
this.
out of this movie
Yeah,
in
let's put it
general,
this way.
right? The music in general
Yeah,
has been really good for this. And I looked into the producer of it, whoever
yeah.
composed the music for it. The guy's name is David Arnold. He's done
Uh-huh.
music for he did the music for Independence Day. He did the
Oh,
music
wow.
for Pierce Brosnan's James Bond Die Another Day. He did the music for
Oh.
Fast and Furious 2. He did the music
Mm-hmm.
for Daniel Craig's James Bond Quantum of Solace, which I know was not very liked, but the music was decent. And he also
Mm-hmm.
did music for, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Hot Fuzz.
Ah,
He did the music for Edgar Wright's Hot Fuzz.
yeah.
And I think
I
at the
mean,
time when it was released, people liked it as well, because I looked it up. Apparently, when it came out, it was the second highest album on the Billboard 200, and
yeah.
eventually it certified platinum even. So people clearly like the music of it, if anything else.
Uh,
Yeah.
I mean, for its time, maybe. When we watched it, we felt the choices at some certain moments were not fitting with respect to the tone of the movie, even at that point in time. But there were other moments where it fit
Yeah.
really, really well as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
One of the things
I
that
can't
I
fault the music
noted,
for being bad, anything at all. Yeah.
yeah, one of the things I really noted was the opening scene, which was three specific separate scenes in three different countries. So we jump from one country to the next, and so
Yeah. Which is
it
something I
was
can credit the
jumping
movie
from
for, at least. It was a truly global phenomenon. Godzilla felt like a global phenomenon. I'll give it that much. We went
yeah a
from,
global
what,
phenomenon
Panama
that came to
to
attack
some other
just New
thing.
York in the end.
Yeah, that's true, that's true. But before we get into watching the movie, let's talk box
Hmm.
office. So, initially, right,
Hmm.
TriStar, who are the production company that mostly made this, wanted to aim for a
Yeah.
budget of $80 million. And by the end of
Uh-huh.
it, they reached a budget of around 130 to 150 million, with another 80
Mm.
million for marketing and stuff. And I looked into
Right.
this, right? I used a converter. Apparently, in today's money, if we take
Hmm.
the $150 million budget, that's close to $300 million. Close to. And the box office it
Tell me if I'm
made,
wrong. Tell me if
yeah.
I'm wrong. Didn't wasn't Bullet Train made for much lesser?
Oh yeah, I think Bullet Train was 100 million, right? Or something even
Oh
less than
wow.
that.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
The box office it made was
Hmm.
379 million. So it made a profit, which in today's money, it actually sounds a
Hmm.
lot more, because apparently it's $713 million.
Oh yeah. Wow. That's a good
So
number.
so surprisingly, if we convert it to today's money, it made a lot more. It opened domestically with 136 million. Sorry, its domestic opening was 44 million, and
Uh-huh.
eventually it made 136 million. Its international opening was 243 million. But
Uh-huh.
Sony were initially projecting a domestic opening of $100 million, and it did less than half of that when it released. Which I think is a telltale sign to how terrible this movie was considered even then. Surprisingly.
Yeah. I mean, looking at the marketing, Puff Daddy, Sean P. Diddy, he did the song, right? Come With Me. I think that was also used for the promotion of the movie.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think even the promotion was lackluster, but I think word of mouth really, really helped the audience.
Well,
Let's say just that. The word of mouth really helped the audience.
yeah, on deciding on whether they wanted to watch this. Because I looked into a bit more about the marketing as well. Turns out, right,
Uh-huh.
Roland Emmerich, the director of this film, and
Yeah.
he is essentially the king of disaster films. We'll talk about why soon.
Yeah.
The director of this film insisted the studios that when they release the trailers for this, they do
Uh-huh.
not show his full body model. So the
Oh.
only thing that audiences saw before the movie released was Godzilla's foot in a $600,000 specially made trailer that they released.
Uh,
That's the
uh,
only thing they saw before the movie was released, which I think was a
so,
smart move considering how shit Godzilla's design is in this. Ah, it's so bad.
uh,
Ugh, like,
uh,
oh my god. The story behind the design is incredible as well. So,
mm-hmm.
the initial like pitch for this movie took something like 10 years to try to get someone in Toho to agree to do this movie. And
Yeah.
after Toho was like, okay, the guys then went around to pitch it to the studios, right? They went to Columbia Studio, I think. They rejected it. They actually went to TriStar as well, which is the company that eventually ended up making. And TriStar initially
Uh-huh.
rejected the film completely. They didn't want anything
Right.
to do with it. But one of the guys that pitched it eventually ended up going to the chairman and CEO of Sony. And
Uh-huh.
that guy, called Peter Guber, loved
Yeah.
the idea of doing a Godzilla Western film, and he gave it to
Yeah.
TriStar, and
Yeah.
that's why TriStar made this movie. So they were almost forced into making this. They didn't actually want to
Uh,
make this, which is a reoccurring theme we'll see very soon. After this
oh my God.
happened, right? After
Yeah.
this happened, it took 2 years for Toho to finally sign a contract for Godzilla, and
Mm-hmm.
then they sent over a 4-page memo about Godzilla's design, right?
Yeah.
Because they were really protective over it. They didn't want people to touch it. They sent this four
Yeah.
page demo. It took them, I think, something around 6 months to a year to design him. They made a couple of models. They even made like a replica of it.
Yeah.
And when they showed it to the reps over at Toho, they said
Yeah.
nothing for a few minutes. And then
Yeah.
they said, "Can you come back tomorrow?"
Yeah.
And when they came back tomorrow, they
Yeah.
signed it off, and that's it. They
Oh.
were so shocked at the design, at how different it was. They said
Yeah.
nothing, and then overnight signed it off and left it. And
Yeah.
apparently, one of the representatives went over to the guy that made Godzilla at the time, and
Yeah.
he showed it to him, and he's like, you know what? It's fine. It keeps the spirit of Godzilla.
Yeah.
I disagree. What part of this
I
keeps the
mean,
spirit of what Godzilla? What are we talking about here? This is a terrible design. No?
if anything, this keeps the spirit of Jurassic Park.
Yeah, you can tell they were trying to capture that Jurassic Park like nature of
Yeah.
it. Also, going
I mean,
back on to
as you saw at
go
the
on,
end
go
of
on.
this, right? Like the hatchlings look like fucking T-Rexes. They,
Oh
they're
yeah,
just straight
yeah.
up T-Rexes. Yeah.
I think I think the hatchlings at the end might have been the only thing that were like rubber suit guys that were wearing something, whereas everything else was
Yeah.
done in CGI, which is why the hatchlings looked relatively better than the CGI Godzilla, which
I mean, there
apparently,
were still
according to a
moments
lot of
where the
reviews,
hatchlings
was
look
actually
weird.
decent for the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there were still moments where the hatchlings look real weird to me, but
Yeah, of course. There was
I
moments where there was a mass of them, and that you could tell was just old CGI instead of any of them wearing rubber suits.
yeah.
So yeah. So going back to the director of this film, Roland Emmerich. He is the king of
Mm-hmm.
disaster movies, both in the literal sense, as in he loves making
Yeah.
disaster films, and in the
Yeah.
sense that a lot of his films don't do well in the box office.
Oh. Oh
so
wow.
so one of his, like, if we go to his oldest thing, what he's known for, 1994 Stargate. He made Stargate,
Uh.
which was apparently well received.
Uh.
1996 he shot to fame with the film Independence Day.
Okay.
A film which is all right, I think. Right? It's an all
Uh-huh.
right film, I
I think
think.
it worked out very well in the end with the star power of just Jeff Goldblum and Will Smith and stuff. And
Yeah.
I'd say the best takeaway from that movie is still the president's speech in Independence Day.
Right, right. And also, just to note that Emmerich didn't do this alone. He usually partners up with a guy called Dean Devlin, who
Uh-huh.
also did Stargate and Independence Day with him on these shows. So
Right.
they did this together, and then independently, Roland Emmerich wrote
Yeah.
2012, which
Uh-huh.
came out in 2008, another disaster
Oh
film
wow.
that was well
Oh wow.
known. And can you guess his most recent disaster film?
I can guess. I can guess.
What do you think it is?
The one, the only, the legendary Moonfall.
And Dean Devlin isn't any better. He did Geostorm, which came out in
I don't even
2017.
I don't even know of Geostorm, and I think that's a good thing.
That's good. That's good. Don't watch it. It is a
Okay.
movie, which is not very good.
Okay, so
So,
one of the movies of all times.
yes, one of the movies of all times. So, yeah, you can see why Godzilla 98 took the direction it took. But what's the interesting thing is here, right? Is
I just pictured in my mind
Sony,
a future
yeah,
scenario of like the destruction of humanity and the civilization that lasts a little bit beyond it. Them being
right.
little bits of technologies and teaching the future generations, then learning about something called films existing in our culture and times at this day and age. And the only movie that's remaining for them being Godzilla or
Godzilla
Moonfall,
98?
and
Oh
yeah,
no.
and Moonfall or something like that.
A
Oh my
case
god.
study. A case study
Yeah,
of disaster films.
yeah.
uh,
Let's put it
but
this way: there are some actors in this who delivered some good performances. Some
who?
moments I
I can
felt
name
like the
one.
performances. Okay, the one guy I can say is the guy who played Animal, right?
Animal. Okay, yeah, Animal did alright. I was gonna say Jean Reno, this French guy. French spy
Ah, yeah,
guy.
right. Right. The French
Yeah.
Master Spy, the one movie where the French Master Spies are actually real.
Also, I did a bit of
So
research on him. Turns out
yeah,
his other films, at least like locally in Hollywood, he played
uh-huh,
a minor antagonist in Mission Impossible. He
uh-huh,
played the French police in both Black Panther and the Da Vinci Code. And
right.
interestingly enough, he dubbed Mufasa from The Lion King.
Oh wow,
Yeah. So
is it the French
interesting
version
guy.
or
The French version, of course. Yeah, the French version.
okay, no wonder.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
So, so yeah, the guy who played
Yeah.
Animal, the French detective, and maybe the colonel at that point in times, right?
Transformers dad. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, so they were good, but otherwise, a good deal of the casting was wrong. I felt at some points I even felt like this feels like something from The Room with how the dubbing and the character dialogue delivery actually happen. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I
let's look
think
at the one
okay.
scene. Let's look at the one
Uh-huh.
scene, right, where you know our main protagonist, the worm guy, sits in front of the military leadership and tells them about the dangers of the hatchlings, and
Yep.
suddenly the news comes through
With
his
the information.
former love interest, yeah, and
Yep.
immediately he's been discredited by them just because
Thrown
it
out
came through,
because of a
yeah,
leak.
yeah, because of a leak, and not even
How
like
many
trying
how
to
many
understand
military
that,
leaks have there happened before? They never threw out those guys, did they? They probably did actually.
yeah,
But
yeah,
there's a movie. He's the only
yeah,
guy that's been right any of the times. Keep him in. He's at 100% accuracy. Why are you gonna throw him out
yeah.
now? Which is another
At least
thing
it's
which is funny about this movie. It's so
yeah,
heavy into stereotypes. Everyone is stereotypically New Yorkan, or everyone's stereotypically French, or everyone's stereotypically bad military, or stereotypically like bureaucratic. Like it's so
yeah.
stereotypical in everything it does. It's too funny. It's hard to take any of
I
it
mean,
seriously.
would you consider the female lead as a stereotypical character or a stereotypical character, stereotype breaker?
I would. And I think she does as well, because I have a quote from her, right? So,
Yeah,
Maria Pitillo, who was the love interest, she's been on a couple of other shows before this. She was one-off characters in, like, Miami Vice and Law and Order. And I'll bring this up because it's you. And you've watched
yeah.
Friends. And she was
Oh,
apparently a character called Laura the Adoption Agent in season 10 of Friends.
I
So,
know who this is. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So there's that as well. But she said that this movie isn't written for big performances from its actors. I didn't expect a lot from it. It won't be like, oh, Maria Pitello is a great actress, but it's an
Uh,
opportunity for people to see me. After this movie, I think she did 3 or 4 other projects and didn't act.
yeah.
Unfortunately, this did
I
not
mean,
bode
I
well for
feel
her.
it would have favored much well for her if she decided that it would be much better for people to not see me in this movie.
Tragically enough, I mean, all the line
Yeah.
delivery was so dry, man. And her and Matthew Broderick's character, the worm guy, they had no chemistry. It felt like such a forced love story. It felt so
I mean,
unnecessary.
I
Why?
think
Why is
I
this a
mentioned
thing
it to
that I
you,
care
right? Like
about?
the beginning scene, like, when they're like, dropping seeds for, his love interest popping up later in the movie, is that scene where he opens his trunk and there's the photos and stuff in the trunk as well, right? And when
Right,
he's
right.
in his van in Chernobyl. So I thought at that moment that this is her dad and this is like his daughter or something like that.
Imagine.
Yeah.
uh,
So that's how good their sort of chemistry was. And I feel it would have been a much better love story if it was the actual, biology woman who flirted with him at some point in the earlier points in the movie as well. I
yeah,
mean,
the
they actually
paleo
had
girl.
genuine,
The paleo girl had
yeah,
actual chemistry. She felt interesting.
yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
I feel the only reason why they didn't push her as like much more of a female lead was just because I'd say she wasn't as appealing as, physically attractive female lead as compared to, reporter girl.
Yeah, maybe, maybe.
It was so much of a better character in my eyes. She was intelligent, she was smart, and
Yeah.
she understood the main character as well.
The acting was better.
Yeah, so the
The
acting was better.
actor.
She was much more of a grounded character, and
Yeah.
she was also like very in line with actually like, if any character sort of followed the core idea behind how to deal with the Godzilla problem, I'd say it was her, just her.
Yes, yes. Her
Yeah.
actor's name, just to note, is Vicky Lewis, and she's done a bunch of like voice acting roles. Like notably, she
Yeah.
did like Wonder Woman in a couple of the animated series for like
Uh-huh.
Batman Beyond and whatnot.
Oh, I see. I
So
see. I think she was the Justice League animated Wonder Woman. If so, then I can understand.
I don't think
Her
she was the
voice is
Justice
incredible.
League one. She's appeared in more one-off character like Wonder Woman roles than like
Ah,
official
I see. I see.
Wonder Woman's. Yeah, yeah. She was also a minor character in Finding Nemo, Finding Dory, whatever, and in Ben 10 Alien Force as well. So she's done a bunch of like
Oh.
voice acting stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other guy I wanted to point out was Michael Lenner, the mayor guy or whoever, whatever. Apparently,
Yeah.
those are like his key roles that he plays. Because the other two noted films that he was in Elf. You know
Mm-hmm.
Elf. He
I don't
plays
know.
like a chairman executive guy in that, and he
No.
plays the senator in X-Men: Days of Future Past. So
One of the
that's
senators.
apparently
One
his
of the.
role. Yeah. That's just what he does, I guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Matthew, I think
One of the
Matthew
things also.
Broderick was a miscasting choice as well in this. He was not great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
On a weird
unfortunately.
turn of events, right? I can't recall his name immediately. You know the guy who played the main lead in The Mummy.
Oh, what's his name? Mummy main lead man. I know who you're
Well, anyway,
talking
you know
about.
who. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think even
Brendan
if
Fraser.
he was cast. Yeah, Brandon Fraser, exactly. Sorry for all the Brandon Fraser fans who listening to this. We just had a momentary lapse of cognition. Even if Brandon Fraser was cast in this role, I don't think he could have pulled this off because this was so weirdly. He was such a big pushover, and in critical moments where time is of the essence and you need to make immediate decisions, he was marveling at the beauty of the shit that was going on around him, which is so counterintuitive to the disaster nature of this movie.
Yeah. It also had
Yeah,
that effect of like, oh, stereotypically, the MC is always right in every situation. And the
yeah,
military, at least this time, the military listened to him to a certain point.
yeah.
To a certain point, they
Like,
listened to him. So
yeah,
that's
the
good
colonel
enough.
was sort of smart enough to know when danger was there.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Another thing I noted was as I watched this, I like the idea in the beginning of this movie where the 90s mystery vibes, where they were investigating more into
Right,
this,
right.
exactly what the problem is. And I hope modern movies bring that back and instead of like, throwing it away so soon right after the movie begins. It really
Yeah,
works
yeah.
well. I think
Stick to it. I
might be
think
one of the other positives that this movie actually has.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
something that's similar to like that vibe is almost like A Quiet Place. If you've watched the
yeah,
first movie of A
yeah.
Quiet Place, it has a similar effect to that. So there are some
Hmm.
movies that achieve that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If anyone's listening from the USA and has acquired a copy of this movie, I'd recommend you go to this following timestamp, which is 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 37 seconds in the movie, where a TV news report shows up with the map of the USA. This might possibly be the most scuffed map of the USA I have ever seen in a movie. It had a lake right in the middle of somewhere of
It
the
looked
southern
like it was drawn
states,
by
and
Americans.
yeah, it looked like
Yeah.
it was drawn in paint by an eighth grader.
Uh,
I feel eighth graders can draw something better in paint as compared to what is shown in the movie. So
uh,
and unironically, the most entertaining character in this movie that I felt was the character of O'Neill. So
yep, the
O'Neill
mayor's
is
assistant.
the guy on the ground, the man on the ground who reports directly to the colonel and puts all the plan and the action. The guy who
Yeah.
fumbles with the mic when he has to make commands, and the guy is always nervous about doing this stuff, and finally somehow pulls it together at the end to actually pull off the mission that he's
Yeah,
been
yep,
tasked
yep.
with.
Yep.
This character, the actor who plays this character, I felt he was much more appealing to a main character role rather than a side character role he was
Oh
relegated
my
with.
god.
This was such an entertaining character to watch. Every second he was in, he was funny. I mean, in the beginning, he comes to always report like, "Yes, sir, we got some bad news to report," and then he always has like,
Right.
"Oh shit, I'm gonna get screwed to hell because I say this." A
He
look
just
on his
becomes
face, and then
nervous. Yeah.
At some point, it switches on to he's the guy on the ground with the colonel tells, all right, let's go with forward of the plan. All right, colonel, plan's been in action and stuff.
Yeah, he does everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
At least he's
Going
smart enough
back,
in the end to figure out about the cab in a cab driver's frequencies and stuff.
yeah, to throw it out. That was cool.
Yeah,
That was good.
his crowning moment.
Yep. To come back to the director for a moment, Roland
Yeah.
Emmerich, apparently, following
Mhm.
TriStar's rejection, he
Yeah.
rejected to do this movie 4 different times. 4 separate
Oh.
times he rejected to do this movie. And he noted that his main reason was because, firstly, he didn't like Toho's version of like a guy wearing a suit in Godzilla
Uh.
doing his like
Uh-huh.
thing with cardboard and stuff. He said he despised that. And then
Yeah.
he said that he didn't really know what to do with it until a certain point. And at that
Uh-huh.
point, he was like, oh, okay, I know what to do with it, but I have to completely change everything about it. And I think that was a
Uh-huh.
terrible decision. Like, I can understand why they're offering it to him. It's like his thing of like, oh, he's come off of Independence Day. He's a big character. Let's give him something. But this was not it. This was not the film for him.
I mean,
To
I'm
be
thinking
fair,
of
I
like
don't think.
the great directors who are just waiting in line to get a shot at something big at this point in time, right? Let's look at
Right,
like a
right,
Sam Raimi, a Danny Boyle, or even like Christopher Nolan, right? I don't think
right.
if any of them, like you could have given them this idea, okay, go make a Godzilla movie that's westernized and stuff, they could have pulled off something incredible, something like this. So it's not even with the reluctance, but if you find a guy who's rejected to do this project 4 times and forcefully push this guy to make this movie, you should very naturally expect
Choose someone
this form
else.
of a result. Yeah, this form of a result from this movie.
Well, actually, funnily enough, they were. I think.
It,
Okay,
yeah, I heard
Roland
about
Emmerich
it in
wasn't.
talks with Tim Burton. In Tim Burton,
Yeah,
right?
Tim Tim Burton, who was hot off Batman and Edward Scissorhand, and I think he did Mars Attacks as well recently, which is a film about
Yeah,
aliens, I guess.
yeah.
And they also considered Clive Baker, who's a guy who's known for horror like stuff, which
Ah,
makes sense for Godzilla. His
yeah.
most famous work is Hellraiser, so I think that gives a
Oh,
good idea of like
yeah.
what he's about. But Roland Emmerich, funnily enough, wasn't actually the original choice for either the director or the screenwriter. Before we talk
Mm-hmm.
about the director, right? Let's talk a bit about the
Mm-hmm.
plot of this movie because
Yeah,
I think we've danced around that.
yeah.
I appreciate. Okay, I don't personally. Hmm. I appreciate that they kept that the whole like, oh, Godzilla was created from nuclear waste type thing because if anyone doesn't know, in Japan, Godzilla was essentially created as a response to World War II's bombings on Japan, and it was about how badly the bureaucracy in Japan handled the events that fell out from that.
Mm-hmm.
And Godzilla was meant to be a representation of that. So I think in this movie you can see that it has some effects of that. The French spies are here to like rectify what their country's wrong has been. They're here to
Yeah.
kill Godzilla and destroy the eggs and whatnot to get away from it as much as
At least the
possible.
New
So
York
there's that
mayor and the
elements of it.
military upper brass stayed true to that idea of bureaucracy.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. So they have elements of it, and I think that even the origin story they chose for Godzilla, he was made out of nuclear waste, which I think on a side note, I think it was nice that they used real nuke footage for a lot of it with the grainy effect. That was cool.
Yeah.
So they went with that intro, and essentially, I actually don't know what the purpose of like Godzilla's whole motive was in this. Godzilla, he, she, whatever, gender neutral, reproduces
Yeah.
asexually, born pregnant somehow, which makes no sense, but whatever,
Yeah.
mutations, I guess. Wanted
Yeah.
to find a nest to lay its eggs in so that it can bring up its children, I guess, which is meant to be
Mm-hmm.
some sort of like sympathetic note. But we're also following the humans, which we're following Worm Guy, which is our main character.
Mhm.
And Worm Guy, along with the Paleo Girl, are trying to essentially work with the military to try to solve this issue ASAP from the nuclear
Yeah.
fallout. And the French guy is like tailing them, and he eventually drags in the Worm Guy to help
Hmm.
him after the military kick him out after the leaks with the news and stuff. So that happens, and then there's also another plot line happening with the love interest, the newscaster
Hmm.
girl, and who
Yeah.
has a stereotypically evil chairman who's like, oh, I'll only like promote you if you have sex with me or something, and
Yeah.
a bunch of stereotypical evil bad guys. Like think '90s stereotypical evil chairman. That's probably him, and she's trying to make her career and stuff. And
Yeah.
at some point, somehow, I cannot tell, all of these plot lines converge, and a movie is made. They like try to hunt Godzilla through New York. Godzilla
You know
eventually ends up
that
farming in like
the Madison Square
stadium,
Garden moment
Madison Square
of
Garden.
you know the hatchlings are out loose. They're gonna get into this movie to this broadcast room any moment now. So we need to immediately let the world know. And they do
Right.
probably one of the most deliberately slow broadcasts ever, where they like tell the immediate danger to the rest of the public, and then they slowly hang on,
Yeah.
vindicating him and tenderizing those moments. I was like, what the hell is going on? You need to rush the hell out of there, you know?
Speaking of slow,
Uh,
the hatchlings were slow as hell as well. Like, brother, I swear there are zombies. I think you said this, right? There are zombies that are
yeah,
faster than these Godzilla hatchlings. Even the big Godzilla felt like it couldn't
yeah.
catch up to the car, which felt like insane. Like, why are we spending time on this? This entire
Uh,
film was
it,
so
it's not
slow.
it's not just the hatchlings are slow. It's like regular characters in this movie were slow, where I felt zombies were faster than them, and then the
The
hatchlings
entire
were
plot was
generally slow.
slow.
But then the main character dodges death multiple times just because of plot armor. That is the only way to explain it, right?
Yep, yep.
Yeah.
And it's not even
On a side,
charismatic. Like if it was charismatic, I would be like, okay, you know what, I'm
yeah,
having fun with it. But it's so dry. It's so dry.
yeah.
No emotion. Nothing. Like, bro.
On a side note, Godzilla himself, this is the most ultra instinct Godzilla that you're ever going to see in a movie. Dodges ICBMs, underwater
Yeah.
submarine missiles, helicopters, everything with pinpoint precision, with just
Somehow
tucking its head in or moving just left and right at the last moment. This is the best Godzilla you can see in terms of
the
motion.
dodging was insane.
Yeah,
He has the
yeah.
jukes.
Yes, this is
It was
all the this is the
ridiculous.
prediction hockey full force.
Future sight. He's got the future sight.
Yeah,
He knows.
yeah.
Yeah.
I,
It's
I'd
such a
say the
slow movie, man. It's such a slow
yeah.
movie. I found a review online that said that I this is I think a 2 hour and 24 minute movie. I think about 2 hours and
Uh,
10 minutes of it is the actual movie. A review
yeah,
online said I had to cut this movie down to 53 minutes to enjoy it.
yeah.
The guy went in, took the movie and edited it by hand to make it an
Uh-huh.
enjoyable movie. The pain.
Uh,
I think I can highly agree with that as well. There's so much of this movie which is just, why are we doing this? What is the point? It's so boring. There's no reason we
yeah.
should be here. Like it's pain.
One of the other miracles in this movie is that they actually managed to somehow evacuate Manhattan.
All of it. All of it
Yeah,
at once somehow.
somehow.
Uh,
I
it
think
was a
that might be the
miracle.
most efficient that the American bureaucracy was in this movie.
Yeah, true, true. Which is also weird because there's a point, like with the military, there's a point where there's like 100 like helicopters flying between the buildings shooting at Godzilla, not hitting each other. And for some reason, the helicopters in this movie can't go above skyline and look from above,
Yeah,
which is so
yeah.
stupid. This infuriated me. It was so frustrating. Why didn't they just go up? Go up. You literally have a flying car. Go up and you can look down at it. Why are you going through the streets with your vision blocked? And they
the
somehow
the
managed to lose Godzilla twice. He comes
exactly,
up
exactly.
behind them. How? How? In which universe is a monster that big disappearing and coming up behind a helicopter? Like, what?
Ultra instinct, isn't it?
What's going on? Ah.
Uh,
Also, I brought up the plot for this, right? So, the
mhm,
original director, the initial director for this was Jan de
mhm,
Bont, who
uh-huh.
didn't do much work before this. But
Yeah.
after this, he would go on to make Speed, the Keanu Reeves
Uh-huh.
film. He made Speed 1, Speed
Uh-huh.
2. He made Twister. He made Lara Croft 2. He was a
Oh.
producer on like Minority Report as well. So he did some decent stuff
Mhm,
later on. But
mhm.
apparently his story was completely different. I'm going to
Yeah.
read this out to you. Tell me
All right.
what you
Let's hear
think
it.
about it and tell me if you think this would have made a better film.
All right.
Ready?
Let's hear it. Yeah.
Debont's Godzilla. Also, to note,
Mm.
apparently Debont's Godzilla initially was a lot closer to the normal Godzilla before
All
Emmerich's
right.
change. It made it a lot more
Uh,
lizard-like. But
The monster
Debont's
itself.
Godzilla, yeah,
Okay.
Debont's Godzilla would have discarded the character's atomic origin and replaced it with one where Godzilla is an artificial creation constructed by the Atlanteans to defend humanity against a shape shifting extraterrestrial monster called the Griffin.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that as the plot? Do you think that would have
It's
made
hard.
a better movie?
It's hard to think of something like that working even in 2023.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
That's what I'm saying. I'm like this movie sounds doomed from the start. Like
yeah.
compared to this, it sounds like Emmerich actually saved the film. Like what is going
Yeah.
on? Like that was the original plan for this film. The only reason it got rejected was because
Uh-huh.
because he was saying that it would take $100 million to make it, but TriStar were adamant on their $80 million budget. So that's the
Right.
only reason he got kicked off of this film, and his version didn't get made. But
I was
like,
about to say, I was about to
holy
say,
shit!
if this was the bankroll by Warner Brothers, I would have been sure that Godzilla would have been like an artificial creation made by the Atlanteans to fight against a giant spider.
True, true. Extraterrestrial spider.
Yes, the giant spider. The giant spider is a contract must. It's a clause in the contract. If you violate that clause, this whole
Uh,
movie's gonna go down the toilet.
uh, it just sounds like everyone who was involved in this either didn't want to be involved or were psychopaths. Like, what
Yeah,
is going on?
it's.
uh,
I had thought just a moment ago where I think this would have worked out incredibly well if the same movie, if it is directed with the tone of a horror movie.
yeah, yeah.
Any good
Uh,
horror director could have done an excellent job with this same plot that we saw in this movie. They would have changed the
right,
tone,
right.
changed the characterization, and like an Armageddon end of the world wide instead of just it's caught in New York and rest of the world is doing fine would have been, you know,
Yeah, yeah. Do what's the
yeah,
Cillian Murphy movie again? 28 Days Later. Do a
what
28 Days Later where
I
it's just New York that's
yes,
affected and the rest of the world is moving along like nothing.
yeah.
Uh,
I mean, even then, right? It's in the end of the movie, but the hatchlings does that, the exponential population rise that could happen. That's been
yeah.
implied, and you can get that sort of a threat. But
200 egg.
majority portion of this movie, there is no danger of imminent death. As far as we know, Godzilla is there. Godzilla does property damage. Some people occasionally die, and Godzilla leaves. That's all.
Godzilla's death scene was so shit as well. He gets hit by torpedoes against a wall. You can barely see him, and then he rolls around in the water and dies. It was so
Yeah.
bad. Luckily, he didn't
Oh, no,
die
no, no,
there.
no.
Obviously, he came back. I know,
Yeah, no,
but
yeah, yeah,
that, as an initial impression, was so bad. It was so shit.
yeah. I mean,
I was like prepared to walk out then and there.
I know nothing about this movie, but even I could tell he's gonna come back. He's not dead.
That moment felt like I wanted my money back, and I didn't pay anything for this. uh, so also before Debot was on this, there
Mhm.
there was an original script before even they came on, and it was
Right.
written by Elliot and Rossio. Apparently, they left. They had their script that was there before, and then when DeBont came on, they changed their script around to meet his like needs and stuff. And eventually, they
Mhm.
ended up leaving the project, and that's when Roland Emmerich took it over and made it his own script and whatnot, along with Dean
Right.
Devlin. And so Elliot and Rossio eventually had their version of their unproduced Godzilla made into a comic book, I think. But
Mhm.
what shocked me was, okay,
Mhm.
this movie up until now, from the research I've done, seemed doomed from the very start.
Yeah.
And I was looking at these guys' credentials, and I was like, holy shit, if these guys actually did the film, it might have actually been really good.
Yeah.
This is what they've done. Before Godzilla, they made
Mhm.
Aladdin, the Disney film,
Oh.
which is
Wow.
good, and they
Wow.
made The Mask of Zorro.
Oh wow.
After this film released, they made Road to El Dorado, Shrek 1, Treasure Planet, National Treasure, Pirates of the Caribbean's 1 to 4.
Oh my
That's what they
God.
made.
Oh my God. They could have killed us. They could have killed us.
They could have done
They could
such a
have
good
made this.
job. There's clearly potential. Again, we haven't read the comic book, so maybe if we read it, it would have been really good or really bad. But it sounded like it could have been such a good film just from that
Yeah.
alone. Like
Yeah.
what? They've done so much good stuff. Elliot, by the
Yeah.
way, is working on the sixth Pirate of the Caribbean, and Rossio is working on the upcoming Godzilla Kong film that's coming out next year, I think.
Yeah.
So they are working on this stuff around it, but like, holy shit, what amazing writers thrown to the wayside.
Yeah. What could have been? What could have been?
Legit. Like, okay, you can argue maybe Pirates of the Caribbean 4 wasn't great, but at least 1 to 3 felt like a complete trilogy, which was really good. Shrek 1 was an amazing film. Still one of my favorite
The
animated films of all time, favorite films of all time. I love that film
yeah.
to death. Road to El Dorado
The
has
only
its like
fault.
charm. Like, oh,
Yeah. The only fault with Pirates of the Caribbean 4 is that 1 to 3 was so perfectly planned and it had like an excellent ending and that sense of planning towards it that for the idea of 4 it feels itself sort of feels like a betrayal to the original story itself. You know, 4 should have been
yep,
like a very separate standalone thing. And that's also
yeah,
one of the failings with 4 where there is no
yeah.
longer Will Turner or Elizabeth Swann to balance out Jack Sparrow. It's just him
That's true. Yeah,
going
Jack
through
Sparrow
stuff.
isn't meant to be the main character. He's meant to be
Yes.
a side main character who's like
Yeah.
his plot just happens to be involved with things. He just happens to be
Exactly.
there, and it just happens to work out for him rather than anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think we can both agree, very shit film.
Yeah.
And we're not alone on that. I think Rotten Tomatoes 19% critic score, audience score is 28%.
How?
I try to find a thing, what do you call it? A review of it from close to when it was released. This
Yeah.
is by Robert Rutten. Godzilla is
Uh,
almost a good movie, but it lacks a couple of essential ingredients: a good script and
uh-huh.
an interesting character.
Oh my God.
So
Oh my
I
God.
think that tells you the state of it.
Yeah.
And this isn't a purely American thing. The Japanese So apparently,
Uh-huh.
Kenpachiro Samatsu, which I think we both saw this review, who was the
Yeah.
actor, who was the guy in the rubber suit for the original
Yeah.
Godzilla films from like
Yeah.
1984 to 95. He
Yeah.
walked out of the film saying it's not Godzilla. It does not have the spirit.
Yeah.
uh, yeah,
I mean, even
rightfully
now,
so. Rightfully
the
so.
original Japanese IP owners, they refuse to call this Godzilla. They just call it Zilla now. It's a
Zilla,
separate
yeah.
being.
They've
Yeah.
just renamed it to Zilla. Tragic. Tragic. I think he's
Yeah.
appeared in a couple of IPs after that as well, but not
Yeah.
majorly. But as of for this movie in particular, after this,
Uh-huh.
originally this movie was planned for a trilogy. So Emmerich
Yeah.
said that they had a trilogy of movies planned where they were going to introduce anywhere from 6 to 7 original monsters in those other two films. So it
Yeah.
seems like it was going to be like it's going to turn into a Godzilla fighting other monsters type thing. It might have been either a complete natural disaster, end of the world, or it could have been like a Godzilla saves the world type thing. And like I said, Sony initially put projections of the opening day for this at $100 million. They were so confident,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, that they paid Toho $5 million for the sequel before they even launched the film, which is
Oh, wow.
unfortunate. To
Here's my question to that. Here's my
TriStar didn't
question to
do
that.
anything with that.
Did
They let it run out.
yeah. Yeah. Did
Yeah.
anyone in Sony see the movie before it was released?
Presumably, at least the head guy, the CEO, chairman of Sony, who forced this movie onto TriStar Studios, would have watched
Uh-huh.
it, right? Hopefully, you're the guy
Yeah.
that made this movie happen in the first place. Like, did you? Did you not?
Uh,
Yeah. It also felt weird that Godzilla was breathing fire rather than atomic breath in this, but I guess how do you
completely
show that in
forgot
a
about
film?
that. The fire-breathing iguana.
Made that is a mutation that is unheard of. I
Yes.
didn't know
Yes.
that was a mutation that could happen.
Yeah.
Also, I'm just reading my notes. I have here the baby Godzillas sounded like elephants for some reason.
Ah. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yep,
They did. They
there's
did.
that. And you pointed out
It's
Blockbuster.
such a degree in the end, right?
Uh-huh.
End of the movie, the Puff Daddy song, "Come with Me." The end of "Come with Me" itself has like a Godzilla roar, and if you can listen clearly,
Yep.
it's I think three distinct types of roars all spaced together, and one of them very distinctly is an elephant roar.
At least I guess it gives us an insight into how they made the roar. It's some sort of elephant
Yeah.
like lion hybrid.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough.
Yeah.
I also have written here. So at the start of this film, they're just trying to chase Godzilla. They're trying to track him down, and after
Yeah.
our MC is able to lure
Yeah.
Godzilla out, he collects some blood
Yeah.
samples, and miraculously,
Uh-huh.
he buys some
Yeah.
human pregnancy tests to find out that an animal is pregnant. How? How
Yeah.
does that work? What part of that is science? It makes no sense. That's the thing that hinges on the very fact that, oh, we should look for the nest. And it came about because of human pregnancy tests. Like,
I
what?
mean, right after that, he immediately tells, like, he goes to the pharmacy and he gives like a big scientific explanation. The pharmacist understands that, gives him all the pregnancy tests,
Did
and he's
she?
like, anyway, basically, they're looking for basically the same genetic markers that a pregnant animal would display and something like that. And it's suddenly, oh, okay,
Just happened to be.
yeah,
uh, uh, what a terrible film. Oh, also this. There are 2 points in this film. The very start of this film, where the worm guy is
hmm
wearing something that looks like Walkmans, and at one
yeah,
other point in this film where there's a guy in like a forklift who's also
ah, yeah,
wearing Walkmans.
I
The
know what you're
worm guy
talking about.
couldn't hear a damn helicopter coming up right next to him. and the
This is
guy in
the
the forklift couldn't hear Godzilla literally in front of
yeah.
him. How could you? Are Walkmans like that impenetrable? How did they not hear this stuff? Like, this is
Take note.
insane.
Take note. Sony, Beats by Dr. Dre, Bosch. This is the best noise canceling that's been made available to everyone.
Clearly.
Yeah. You guys are slacking. You need to go back to what they used to make.
What a mess. What a mess.
Or counterintuitively, this could be like the best explanation of okay, we need to tone down the noise cancellation so that people can hear something in the background.
Too many accidents. Too many people are being eaten up by Godzilla because of their Walkmans.
Yeah.
Uh,
And supposedly the
before,
best character in this movie, right? That I liked, the character of Animal, the cameraman,
yeah,
rushes out into danger, sees Godzilla coming at him like 3 or 4 times, right? He just stands still, like, and
yeah,
doesn't move or run away or something like
nothing.
that.
uh, I think maybe that's one thing I can sort of give credit for the movie is when there were
uh,
humans, it somewhat felt like Godzilla was actually there, even though it was
yeah,
obviously completely CGI and stuff. Okay, I can give
yeah,
credit to the movie for that.
yeah,
And I guess to end this off, after
yeah,
all of this stuff happened, the film made good enough money where they could have actually made the second film and tried for their trilogy.
yeah.
And when it came out, Roland Emmerich was actually like starkly defending against a lot of the critics that hated on this film. He would go
Mm-hmm.
out of his way to like fight people on it, and since then he's come around to it and been like, okay, yeah, I kind of agree that this is not a great film. It's kind of shit. So he's changed his ways in the last 20 years on his opinions on that
Yeah,
movie, apparently. But
yeah,
eventually the trilogy ended up being cancelled mostly because no one really wanted to see it. Roland Emmerich didn't really want to work on it. No one else,
uh-huh,
no like studio wasn't really interested in it. So with the
yeah,
remaining like license they had, they decided to make a animated series which ran for 2
yeah.
years from 98 to
Oh, wow.
2000, and that retained a lot of the voice actors from the old. So the Transformers dad came back, and
Uh-huh.
who Matthew Broderick came back, which I actually just found out. Matthew Broderick apparently voices adult Simba in The Lion King.
Oh, wow.
I had no idea he did that.
This is such a departure
And
from Adult Simba. Adult Simba would be ashamed of you, Matthew Broderick.
true. And they got a bunch of their voice actors back, and so interestingly enough, in that they changed the ending slightly so that when the egg hatches at the end, which they set up at the end of this movie for a sequel,
Right.
clearly, when the egg
Mm-hmm.
hatches, the worm guy is actually with the egg or he's next to him, and because of that, the hatchling ends up attached to him, and
Oh,
he ends up raising him for like a couple of days. He grows up to maximum size,
yeah.
and essentially it becomes a thing of like him and Godzilla are fighting against other mutant monsters that have come out from incidents
Ah,
and whatnot, and they fight
I
together
see.
and blah blah like that.
I see.
Which it
So,
sounds like a decent concept. It sounds like what Western audiences would have wanted
yeah.
to see. And I guess
It's
it's
very much
animation, so they
Pokemon
could
like.
have done anything.
Very much Pokemon like.
Yeah, very much in that
Uh,
essence. And after
I
that,
guess Charizard came out like just a couple of years ago, right? Probably at that point.
yeah.
So
I think early 90s, so it would have been the craze would have been like starting then
not early,
probably.
late 90s even, like 99 or
Or late
something. Like this
90s.
is in,
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
in the 2000s. Yeah. So
Yeah.
uh,
So, yeah, there is that essence as well. I think we also mentioned this was very much trying to capture the essence of Jurassic Park fairly. Even with the music
mhm.
choices, you could tell it was invoking a Jurassic Park thing. But yeah, after this, Toho didn't allow the West to make another Godzilla movie for 16 years until we got
Mhm.
Godzilla 2014, I think it was. which
Yeah,
is far better and nothing close to what this is. Oh,
yeah,
luckily.
yeah.
Yeah,
As I remember it, that was an incredible movie to watch. It genuinely
yeah,
had like the hair raising,
yeah.
nerve-wracking tension that's associated with a Godzilla movie.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
Hmm.
I think that's a wrap for today then.
That's a wrap.
That's a wrap.
Gonna,
What a shit film, man.
yeah, what a
What a
shit
shit
film.
film.
I'm glad we
Tragic,
took time
tragic.
out of our lives to watch it together.
True. But what a shit film.
Yeah, yeah. It was one of
Uh,
the experiences of all time.
yes, indeed it was.
Yeah.
Indeed it was.